Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 27th, 2026 meeting of the Wilmington School Committee. I know we have some guests in the audience here this evening. If you are here for the meeting about the fire substation, it's in the big room next door. Just don't want anybody to be in the wrong place for the wrong thing. That being said, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We've got a jam-packed agenda this evening, kicking us off right out the gate, the Wilmington High School Student Representative Report. Jackson Kiley. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
I made it short. This one. The Performing Arts Department recently wrapped up several successful spring performances, including the orchestra concert, chorus concert, and concert band performances of the 7th and 8th grade band. The Jazz and Pop Ensemble, Half Common, and was free to attend. Some students were able to showcase their members of the community. Wilmington High School hosted the annual Special Olympics earlier this month. Students from across the district participated throughout the day, while many high school students volunteered to support athletes, help events, as well as watching the events throughout the day. The 22nd annual History Fair was held on May 12th, allowing freshman sophomores to focus and learn on more about topics that interested them. Congratulations to all the freshmen and sophomores for their hard work, and congratulations to the select students who received awards for their especially outstanding projects. The World Language Department hosted the World Language Awards celebration during Flex Block this past Friday. A total of 127 students from across the grades and languages taught in Wilmington Public Schools were recognized for their achievements in their chosen language. The senior class has now completed senior exploration internships and capstone projects. Capstone projects presentations took place at the end of last week, and the internship expo was held at the high school gym yesterday. The 9th graders are also starting to prepare for their science MCAS exams, which will take place on June 2nd and 3rd. We wish them good luck and encourage them to get a good night's sleep and a good breakfast before testing. And seniors are now enjoying Senior Week celebrations leading up to graduation this Sunday, May 31st. Events began with Senior Sunset on Monday, followed by a class dinner yesterday, field day today, and graduation rehearsal and senior walkthrough tomorrow. Finally, the WHS Athletics Awards Night will be held tomorrow, May 28th, and Scholarship Night will take place this Friday, May 29th, honoring seniors and supporting their future goals. And the Underclass Awards Night will also be held on June 4th to recognize students in grades 9 through 11.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackson. Questions, comments for Jackson from the committee? Mr. Turner.
I was just going to say how much I appreciate all those events, and particularly things like the foreign language celebration is fantastic. And the internships and projects, I wasn't able to attend, but just the scale and scope of those is always amazing. The creativity of the projects and the internships, the depths they go to is really, really impressive as well.
Lucky for you, Mr. Turner, you're going to get a small sampling of those internships and presentations here in just a minute.
Can't wait.
Anything else? Mr. Ragsdale.
Just also want to congratulate Jackson on his last Memorial Day parade, which the high school band marched intrepidly through the rain from Market Basket down to the cemetery, and did themselves proud. He'll have one more opportunity to play with the band at graduation, but last parade was accomplished with panache.
Nice. Absolutely. I think before we transition, Jackson, I know you're going to present part of your internship. Before we transition, I just want to take a minute and recognize and appreciate you for your participation. Certainly this year as our student representative, but I mean, you've been coming to these meetings for the last few years as a sort of a fill-in presenter. And you were voluntold to make some presentations, but you have consistently provided valuable insight and on the student perspective, and certainly it'll be greatly missed. You're continuing your education, correct me if I'm wrong, at George Washington, and you're studying political science, is that right? And so I suspect that Jackson will be back in the not too distant future unseating one of us at this table. But we have a certificate and a card and a small gift for you that we'll present with at the end of the meeting. But I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for everything you've done. So, thank you.
No, thank you.
But that segues us into the Wilmington High School Senior Internships and Exploration Projects. And so, Jackson, while you have the floor, would you like to start, or do you want to defer?
No, we'll defer.
All right.
Defer to Don, yeah.
All right, perfect.
Welcome, Mr. Gendron.
Thank you for having us. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more detail about what senior exploration is for anyone in the community who's not familiar. So during fourth quarter, seniors at WHS stop attending classes and go out into the real world to complete capstone projects or internships in their selected area of industry or passion. In reality, it's a year-long process. Students spend the fall and winter advisory time researching, networking, planning, and later executing these personalized learning experiences. Students who did capstone projects presented last week to an audience of students, staff, and community members. And students who did internships presented at the Internship Expo this past Tuesday, attended by the entire school. It's been really amazing to see students talk with such confidence, pride, and accomplishment about their last month of the school year. And with some schools characterizing quarter four of senior year as senioritis, through senior exploration, we really see the opposite at WHS. We see students who are excited and intrinsically motivated to pour their effort and time into work they care about. And many students continue the work into the summer, future internships, and job placements, and more. I'd like to specifically thank Mr. Staffier for his continued leadership in structuring the year-long process with over 170 senior exploration projects to manage this year. I invited him to join us tonight, but he has a personal commitment. And happy anniversary to the Staffiers. Each year we invite a few students to talk about their experiences. It's really difficult to choose as so many students exceeded expectations. So tonight I'm joined by a few students whose area of work represents fields not previously discussed at school committee meetings to keep expanding the community's understanding and support of the program. Each student will share a brief summary of the work and answer any questions. We'd like to start with Adania.
All right, hi. I did my internship at the Wilmington Memorial Library. It was a great experience and I'm happy to share it with you all. So I wanted to do an internship at the library because I've had prior experience there through community service, plus the library has always been my comfort zone and I've grown pretty friendly with the librarians. So, and then when they asked me what a typical day was like during my internship, I couldn't really think of any because it was always so different, like so many new activities to take part in. But if I had to say a rough outline, I would always check in with my supervisor, and then I had these one-on-one meetings with full-time staff to learn more about their specific positions. And then I helped with the graphic design of the new library website that's upcoming. That was super interesting considering my field, which I will get into later. Yeah, and the programs, it was always so fun getting to prep for the programs, getting to test for hours sometimes before people would actually get to do them because a lot could go wrong with kids and adults and teens alike. So some surprises during my internship were summer reading prep. I did not know how much librarians put into that. They start prepping in December and January for this event for all ages, and they put a lot of time and effort into it, even with some librarians working on graphic design of their own for that, even though they're not tech librarians. And then some current issues that surprised me, like since the pandemic, the number of book bannings has increased exponentially based on LGBTQ topics, or some romance, a lot of different things that have weirdly exponentially increased. And so I found myself happy that I did this internship because I was able to practice more public speaking as I am now. It was a great opportunity to practice this skill more and also learn more about the inner workings of a library. It is really fascinating, although it is not my particular career field. I actually was able to relate it a lot to it. For example, there's a lot more, I'm going into fintech at Bentley University, and there's a lot more finance and technology involved in a library than you would expect. There are 2 technology librarians, and their commitment to keeping the library up to date with new technologies, AI devices, to make sure it is a primary source of information, despite people not using books as that so often anymore. And on the finance side, you wouldn't think that like a library has a lot to do, like the senior clerk at the library has a lot to do since library funding comes from town and government public funding instead of private monetary gain. But there's a lot that goes into that, a lot of in and out of different monetary sources. It's fascinating stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we felt like this work represents like a line of internships that are with local Wilmington community organizations. We had lots of students at the middle school, and thanks to all the principals across the district who hosted. We had several students with Wilmington Police Department, Wilmington Fire Department, and so it's a great way for students to connect with the community organizations and for them to get the influx of help that was described. And so I think we can pause if there's any questions or feedback for Don.
Yeah, great. Questions, comments, observations? Sure. Mr. Turner?
Sorry. So first of all, thank you for doing that one. I think it's fantastic. The Wilmington Public Library has been an amazing resource for our schools. And so I'm really glad you were able to go and help there and work with them on those things. They've helped us with work researching veterans. They've helped us with the Wilmington community history class. So the library is a fantastic resource. I know a lot of kids that during finals will go there and study after school, after the finals are done each afternoon. So I really appreciate your time. And it's amazing. In my experience working with them, you can see that there's a lot going on, but it's amazing that you were able to capture all that just within the period of your internship. So that's really impressive. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Others? Can I ask, I was interested in knowing if there was sort of one thing that you learned about the library during this process that you wish the public knew. What would it be?
Of course, yeah. The main thing I would say is the amount of time and effort that the librarians put into their events. There's a lot more to it than just for kids, like baby time activities and other kids programs. There's a lot for teens and adults as well that they can take advantage of in their free time to learn new skills or just interact with other community members that they wouldn't have otherwise and make new connections.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you. And certainly in thanking the community partners, I'd be remiss if I missed WCTV, Broadcasting Live. They've been one of our original, great placements for internships, and Sam Perkins really personalizes it for each student, so thank them as well. And so I think now might be a good time to transition to Jackson's internship. I know you heard a little bit about it last week, but I definitely want to make sure it's part of this presentation, so Jackson.
Yeah, so I was very lucky enough, thanks in a large part to our wonderful chair. He's the one who hooked me up with Senator Feingold's office, who is the state senator that represents the town of Wilmington. So I was able to do a lot of in-district work, and unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to go to the State House because of AP testing and classes. I still had to be at the school, and I wouldn't have been able to make it to Boston until after the State House closed. So we, both parties agreed that it would be better for work from home. So it was a lot of random, not random, but a lot of research and data collection. One of the first large things I did was the Mass Leads Act from 2024. I went through that bill and I figured out how much money was given to each town in the district and what that money was used for specifically. For example, Wilmington got, I don't remember the amount off the top of my head, but they got a sum of money that was used to repair parts of Main Street from Richmond Street to where I forget the street name, but it's just the street over from where we are now, going up towards the MBTA station. And other work I did a bunch of research on top employers and nonprofits in the district, and also they recently hired a new communications chair. So they had me also grab Instagram accounts for those top employers and nonprofits and the schools and athletics offices. So Mr. Gendron, Senator Feingold does have your Instagram account.
We're gonna have to send him something special, Jeff.
So if you ever get a follow from him, just know it was me. If you're the first one I put on the list. So
I appreciate that. Good brand loyalty. That's good.
That's right.
yeah, and so it was. I took classes like AP U.S. History and AP Government in school, and we obviously talked in part about lawmaking and legislation. But one thing that was like really eye-opening is how many people work behind the scenes, and it's not just like the elected official. It's like, for example, I had 3 like supervisors I responded to, like, and there are more than just them, because I mean, like I said, they hired a new communications chair, and so it's just because like when people see the news, it's always like just focused on the politician, but it's not, and it's never like the people like working behind that person to help them make choices for and support their community. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's great, Jackson.
Awesome
Thank
job,
you.
Jackson. Again, pause if there's any questions or feedback for Jackson.
I know Mr. Golden
Well
can
said.
attest to the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes at the State House.
Yeah, that's
And I told Jackson this the last time, but he got that internship by himself. I just made a connection. He didn't need anything from me. Go
And
ahead.
I just wanted to play it forward a little bit to our cell phone discussion, but we'll be discussing how the legislature's law, and we have to meet the requirements of the legislature, the law they're promulgating. But Jackson, you'll find that a lot of the staffers you were working with are the people who actually write that, not necessarily the reps and senators themselves. But thank you for all your work with these internships. Thank you for working at the library. My 1-year-old daughter really enjoys story time. But I guess I do have a question for the principal is there a kind of subsection of work life that you want to expand this program into? Like, is there any way that the committee can help make other connections for the high school to find other kind of, or other students come up to you that say, I want to do X, and you're like, gee, that's not a connection we've made yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. We do have like a listing of yearly partners, and we share that at the beginning of the process, and that's a good way to get started. Some of them have limited placements, but they'll often refer us to other colleagues in the industry who could host. But certainly if you're aware of, organizations or individuals who are eager to partner with us, they can contact the school and we can certainly add them to that listing. We felt like Jackson kind of represented some public office internships, of which many students pursue. We had a student at the Mass Trial Court, Juvenile Court, the clerk's office at Middlesex Superior Court. We have people in real estate law or real estate offices, and so oftentimes those placements really rely upon networking. And I think Jackson described a great job of how he does that. And lastly, part of what I encourage them not to address tonight is at the end of the project, we have them identify how they exemplified each mindset of the vision of the graduate. And I think hearing each student talk, you can't help but see all of those mindsets in action. And one more example, we'll switch to our last presenters. We got Abby and Ella coming down.
Yeah, great.
They'll take these seats, we'll step aside, and then if there are any questions at the end, happy to help.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
So me and Ella did a capstone project, and it kind of started with my service learning class with Miss Dunlap. So that's where you kind of have to pick either a nonprofit like organization or like connect with some type of organization where you then have to like make an impact and like do community service and a lot of things to impact like the organization and things. So we did Alzheimer's awareness. So what happened was at the beginning of this year, so the project started in the fall, I think around October, and ended like last week. So it's been ongoing this like whole year. And we started with connecting with 2 assisted living homes, one in Reading and one in Wilmington. And then we made memory care bags for the people in the assisted living homes who were struggling with either Alzheimer's or like some type of dementia. And then we delivered 75 memory care bags and then raised over $1,000 to then make those memory care bags. And inside the bags were like things that would give them either comfort, some type of accomplishment, or like something like that to just keep them busy throughout the day. So that's like stuffed animals, some snacks. We gave them like word search book, crossword puzzle books, coloring books, like those types of things. And then we continued this project for our capstone project, where we connected with the same assisted living homes and did some other stuff that I'll touch on.
Yeah, so for, we had like a certain amount of hours that were required for us to do for our project. So we decided to, at the beginning of the project, we visited assisted living homes around once a month. So we wanted to visit them a lot more often. So we decided to visit Pearl Street in Reading 2 times a week, and then Windsor Place in Wilmington once a week. So we visited for each assisted living home for about 2 hours. And that was really beneficial for us just to create further connections with the residents that we've already seen for the past couple of months. So that was really great to see them every week. And then we also wanted to raise more money and do another event with them, just like the memory care bags that we gave them. So we set up an information table at McKinnon's one day. So and we gave out information flyers that we got from the Alzheimer's Association in the fall. And then we also gained, I think, around just $100 from that donation box. And then apart from that, we also set up a donation box at the Wilmington Senior Center, where we asked for some crafts, as we were going to do a craft drive for them for Windsor Place. We're going to make they have 2 floors, so we were going to make a craft basket for each of them. And then we also used some of the leftover money we had from our project to also buy the remaining crafts that we needed. So I think just like last week, 2 weeks ago, we delivered both the baskets to Windsor Place. And that was really awesome, just to see them open the crafts and start to do them. So that was really awesome. So yeah, that's kind of how we finished our project out for this year.
Awesome. Thank you both very much. Questions, comments? Dr. McCauley?
Yeah, what a nice project. What drew you both to doing this? Yeah, this is not something I would expect high schoolers to want to do. You know?
So with Miss Dunlap's service learning class, you kind of have to find something that you're interested in or like kind of has impacted you. So my grandfather got diagnosed about 2 years ago. So I decided, like, once I found out, I really didn't know what Alzheimer's was. So I think I took that class as an opportunity to learn a lot more about the disease. And then me and Ella took it into being a DECA project as well. So we really took like this whole topic into being 3 different things we needed for like a bunch of different stuff. So that's how Ella got involved. She got involved through our like DECA project. We did that together. We went to States for that and all those things. But it was just like being able to learn more about Alzheimer's and then take the experiences I had here. And then as the disease progresses throughout like my grandfather and how everything goes, I'll be able to like adapt to that and like be able to know how to like respond to those types of things.
Yeah, no, it's a very devastating, terrible disease. And it's good people like you stepped up to help those people afflicted with it. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bryson?
Okay. Did you have an opportunity, so you went there and you worked with your craft baskets. Did you have an opportunity to work with them at that final celebration? And can you just tell us a little bit of what that was like for you?
Yeah, so when we went there at this specific day, they were actually at lunch, unfortunately, so we kind of just dropped it off. But I would say when we were dropping off the memory care bags, that was really great, because at Pearl Street, we got to make them with the assisted living home. So that was really good. We got to like put them together and then deliver them to the memory care unit. And just like delivering them, I think it was really like great to just see like just smiles on their face and see how their day was like uplifted. I remember after I gave the bags, like a couple months later when we went back for our project, one of the residents kind of remembered me and she gave me a big hug. So that was really awesome to see like the impact that the memory care bags made. I'm hoping they really like the craft baskets. That was kind of our final thing that we did with them. So we haven't unfortunately gone back, but hopefully we'll get to visit them again sometime this summer. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how did you decide? Did you work with someone or research what to put in the memory bags? Like, how did you figure out what sorts of things would be best?
Yeah, so we mostly just asked we worked with the activities directors and like the nurses and the people who worked with the residents there. So, and yeah, they were like, as for like a lot of the times they have like events, so we would do crafts with them. We also like saw them like carrying around like stuffed animals and baby dolls, so that's how we kind of knew like to put those in the memory care bag. So
And then another thing like Ms. Dunlap addresses at the beginning of our project is like, what do these organizations need? So like when I called up the organizations, I was like, hey, we have this idea. How can we like make it possible? Like, what do you guys need? So I think it was just a lot of things that they were like, well, we do use these often. We run out often. Like, here's like something you guys can do for us. So.
Yeah, it's great. Well, congrats. That sounds like a great project. And I think just talking about it and having it as part of your, like the expedition where other students are hearing about it, I think is helpful because it is sort of, when it happens in your family, you're not always sure exactly who to talk to, how to talk about it. And I think I always said knowledge is power, right? So by having that knowledge and by interacting directly with many residents, I think that it prepares you not just to support them, but also to support other people your age who might be dealing with something similarly. So they may be seeking you out. So thank you for doing that.
Mr. Exon.
I imagine that you had an idea in your head when you developed this project and proposed it of kind of what it was going to be like. I'm curious about if there's anything unexpected that you found when you actually went to do it, like if there's something that surprised you that you kind of didn't anticipate when you were originally envisioning what it would be.
I think something that was a little surprising was how invested the like staff was with like why we wanted to do this. They were kind of just like, why are these high schoolers actually like not just here for volunteer hours? Like, why do they really want to like give back? So I know Beverly from Pearl Street, she was like really like taken back at the idea. So I think like that was really crazy because I just thought like, hey, this would be a fun idea to do. Like we can help some people out. We make these bags, we raise some money. But it really just turned into something so much bigger than that. And then like she got us an interview with Boston 25, which was like insane. So I was like, I think like that was when I was like, wait, we're actually like really making something work here. So I think that was kind of crazy, but yeah.
I think just how like willing the community was willing to help out. Like when we had the information table at McKinnon's, like so many people are coming up to us and being like, I have a family member with Alzheimer's, or just like, again, like Abby said, like taking me back of like why we were doing this project. So I think like all the community support from like them donating the money to us for the memory care bags and giving the craft supplies and all that stuff was really like, I wasn't like sure we were gonna make enough money, and we raised like more than we needed to, so that was really good to see. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Chen.
So thank you very much for this. It's a really impressive project and a lot of great work. For both of you going forward, is this something you're interested in doing more of? Is it going to impact what you do in college? Is it something you're looking to do as a volunteer thing in the future?
I know my family is now like invested in like the Alzheimer's Association, where they do like the walk to end Alzheimer's and like those types of things. So I'll definitely be continuing that and like doing those like big events with the Alzheimer's Association. But I think for like me in the future, I know I want to do something that will like have some sort of like business type of thing, like where I get to like organize things, manage things and stuff like that. So I think doing this project also gave me that experience, which was really great.
Yeah, I hope definitely like, I'm not sure how we'll continue it in Wilmington, but I hope definitely like when I get to college, I can either start something like this at another assisted living home, or just like another community service project, because I do love volunteering. So yeah, just hoping to make an impact in my new home in college.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome.
Mr. Gendron, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind. Do I go again?
Perfect.
So, I mean, obviously these students are incredible, but I really have to drive home. We had 170 of these experiences. And I know it takes some time to get through 3 of these, but there's so many students who had both an impactful and powerful learning experience as the result of this. And I think it's really important that the community knows that that's happening. So if you know a senior and you're not sure what they did, make sure you ask them. And thank you to all of you for coming out to talk about your projects.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No question,
Sure.
but I'll just say thank you. We always look forward to this little snippet, and I know we always wish we could attend the larger one because I know there are so many other wonderful things that are happening. And I know that this is a year-long process, but I think that I love to hear that they're doing this from like smaller steps and starting to think, because I think when you do go to college, there are going to be lots of times where you're like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do next? And you have a little bit more free time in college than you actually have in high school. And I think that's always surprising to new college students because they're like, how do I choose what to do next? And I think this process of being like, okay, what do I like? What do I want to study? Where might I want to intern? Well, it's a useful skill, one, because it will kind of fill you up with, these feelings of like, oh, I did something really exciting and cool here. But also like how do I want to sort of learn when I'm in school? And I think knowing how to go about that. Oh, there's a library. Oh, there's, the politician. Oh, I can do these sorts of things will be really useful to you. So to Mr. Gendron, thank you for sort of opening this up. And I think it just gets stronger each year. So we're grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Gendron, you're here later, so you can hang out. Jackson, you're stuck here, but the rest of you, thank you. You're free to go if you don't want to stay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Continuing on with the theme of interesting presentations, we are excited to welcome Allie Hurst from CPAC this evening to talk about their organization. And whenever you're, you got to get the clicker. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And my company requires me to tell you that the information here is not shared by my company. This is shared based on the information that I'm doing for the CPAC.
Noted. Thank you.
So I'm here to speak to you a little bit about the CPAC. I've been chair of the CPAC for almost 2 years. Prior to that, I served as information liaison and have held a variety of roles with the CPAC. So just in case people don't know what the CPAC is, so the CPAC is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. There's a definition related to what it is and how we work together. One of the things that, as I was thinking about this presentation, is that we obviously want to make a difference for kids who have IEPs. I know there were so many people in my journey when my kids started school that helped me. So I see this as a way to pay it forward. And a little bit more about the CPAC. So our mission statement is to provide education and support to parents, school personnel, and the broader community on special education issues and services. And we work toward creating an environment of respect and support and appropriate education under Chapter 766. One of the things that we do every year is we do a basic rights workshop with the Federation for Children with Special Needs, sharing information about what the CPAC rights are as a family. They changed up the format a little bit this year, so the workshops through the Federation are now, we don't have to host them as a district. There's many of them that people can attend, but we'll talk more about that later. And just so a note, on the bottom of every slide is a source, so those are clickable links that people can go out and look at. A little bit of information about our district versus the state overall. So I thought looking at younger kids was important, younger students as well. So there are 50 children aged 3 to 5 with an IEP. There's some basic information in here. And this is using the Department of Education data. And then for age kindergarten to age 21, there are 523 students. And there's different categories that students fall into. Full inclusion, partial inclusion, substantially separate, and separate schools, residential, homebound, hospital. And there's more information if you go out to the website. In terms of what we're looking for is we're always looking for new members to join us from the CPAC. Currently the board is only comprised of 3 people. And there's obviously a lot more people than 3 that have kids on IEPs here in town. I did put our email address. We're always looking for parents or guardians to join our meetings. You do not have to be on the board to come to a meeting. We generally hold them virtually on Thursday nights. We've experimented with different days and times to see what might work depending on people's schedules. And then our current board members are myself, our information liaison is Joanna Medor, and our member at large is Darcy Martin. And then the general membership is open to all parents and guardians of students found eligible for special education in Wilmington. Some of our accomplishments, we've been holding quarterly business meetings with updates from the Director of Student Support and School Committee. Some of the things that were done, the who's who for student support, information about the Leaders in Mental Health series. We had a workshop that the Bureau of Special Education did last month about mediation. And these are some of our potential future workshops that have been suggested related to bullying, the team process, attending the Federation for Children with Special Needs, ALICE protocol, anxiety. These are all links out to our CPAC website and other external sites as well. And then some of the things that we're looking forward to is obviously working with the director and assistant director of student support, continuing our collaborative work, working with the new superintendent, our business meetings and workshops. We also have a survey that we're fielding right now for parents. We haven't had, we're gonna be promoting it out through Office of Student Support. There's a number of questions. We've gotten some responses. I'm hoping we'll get more. And my goal is to come back in the fall and share some of those thoughts here.
That's awesome.
And then I just wanted to thank everyone for all of your support of the CPAC and the collaborative efforts. In addition, here's our contact information. We do have a Gmail address. We try really hard to monitor it. We get a lot of questions and we do the best that we can. We have a Facebook page and a website. One of the questions that we asked too was how people wanted to be informed about activities related to the CPAC. And based on our preliminary responses, I think maybe there's some work to be done with that because it seems like people might be looking for information in different ways than we had traditionally thought about, like maybe putting information in a principal newsletter or maybe some other ways that we hadn't thought of. So I think we'll get some good ideas, hopefully, to increase engagement as well. And then this is just a listing of the different board roles and the work that we do. And the co-secretary is actually a role that's co-led with the information liaison. That's the role held by Joanna. Our member at large, again, this is Darcy. So they can also present special interests. And the general membership is open to all parents and guardians found eligible. We can technically hold elections like at the end of the school year, but if somebody was interested in joining, we could always have a special election, and we have a balloting process. Treasurer, we don't currently fill this role, although it did exist at one point. And then the election rules, the elections are held as the first order of business. We're planning to do our elections on June 11th. We'll be doing them virtually through a voice ballot. It'll be decided by a simple majority vote. And then the term is July 1st through June 30th. And then that's all I've got.
That's great. Thank you. Questions? Dr. Bryson.
Thank you so much. This is great. I feel like we've had this update in the past, although I don't know the last time we had this update.
Officially, the presentation was last done in 2018, yeah. Although I believe that some others have come and done the presentation before.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions. One, how many people are you looking for the board of directors? Like,
so,
what's the goal?
Yeah, so in an ideal world, we would have up to 10 people on the board of directors because there's so many things that we want to do, but we just don't have the capacity. Some of the things that people are interested in is like a separate parent advisory, like a support group. We tried to do that, to be honest, and we just didn't have the bandwidth with the number of people that we had. So even people who could be just members at large who could help organize the workshops, who could help with the support group, who could help with some of the logistics of the work, because with only 3 of us, it's a lot to kind of like prepare and get ready for.
Yeah, and so I mean, I've been doing this work on the school committee for a long time, and we've had different sort of iterations of CPAC where I think there have been some more people, but
right.
I don't know if I've ever seen it like full.
So right? I think the last time we had a really good board was like pre-COVID.
Okay, so do you think that's part of like getting people to sort of rejoin, or I guess what can we do on our end to sort of help? I mean, obviously this is helpful.
Yeah, I'm hoping through the survey that we'll get some more insights. And one thing I'll say about the survey as well is we're not collecting any personal information on it. So there's no email addresses, there's no contact information, any information, if student names or staff names or anything are in there, we're going to redact it. So we're hoping that more people will realize who the CPAC is and what we do and be able to come and like join in some way, because even our business meetings that we're having are not as well attended as we would necessarily like. And that feels challenging because there's so much more that, you know, as an overall organization that could be done. Especially because people don't necessarily always understand when they're new, like what the journey might look like.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
For
thank
being
you.
one of the 3 board members, we are deeply appreciative, and I hope that we can kind of garner some more support. And I thought the survey was very well designed, so I did take it right away, so thank you for that.
Thank you. And one other thing, I apologize, I forgot to mention, so we have a CPAC site. Trish Kramer helps support the CPAC site, so she's always been great in like updating our site for us. That's one of our goals for next year as well, is to kind of like refresh that site and get more information out there as well.
That's great.
That's great.
Thanks, Sally.
Ms. Lord, then we'll go to Dr. McCauley.
Hi, first of all, thank you for all your work. But could you share just a little bit about just, what your vision is for CPAC? Like, what is it that you would hope to be able to do or for the community?
I would like to do more education, honestly, for the community. We have so many people that come to the meetings and they don't necessarily know what they don't know. And through our workshops, one of the things that we've tried to do is to educate parents about different information, because there are so many resources. MassPack is a resource that the district pays for that we leverage, and there's so much good information there. But a struggle, I would say, is that when we are having workshops, people are not necessarily attending, and I can't necessarily always tell you the why. Like the BSEA mediation one, unfortunately, had to be rescheduled, and we had to do it at a later date. But a lot of the presenters don't allow those to be recorded. And so I would say that that's a struggle for us, because we would like to be able to record them, but unfortunately, it's up to the presenters when they come and present.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking if they were recorded and available, but yeah, that's a challenge.
It's something that a lot of the presenters, like when they agree to come and speak, it's a caveat that they put in. And so we have to abide by that. And we do not record any of our meetings, even though they're held on Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McCauley.
Yeah, thank you for coming by, giving the overview on CPAC and everything like that. Just curious, you being in your position at CPAC, kind of hear from other parents that are reaching out for help and everything. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing from the community regarding special education?
So some of the challenges I heard early on, once student support moved over here, was like an access issue. So because the hours didn't necessarily align, people were having trouble like bringing their IEPs and doing things like that. I know that's been solved for at this point. Some of the other things fundamentally seem to be communication, because sometimes people just don't necessarily understand what they don't know. One of the other things that I'd like to do next year is really dive into the procedural safeguards, because I think everybody gets them, but they don't necessarily know what they mean or able to interpret them. They'll get them, they'll look at them, but they'll be really overwhelming, and then they won't know what to do with them.
Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
So thank you very much for all of your time and promise. It's really appreciated. With regard to the email, you said you get a lot of emails in, a lot of different questions. Are some of those, I know every child is very unique, and all of what goes on with their addressing their needs is going to be unique, but are there themes out of that can get distilled into, an FAQ, that sort of thing on the CPAC website?
Potentially.
To kind of become its own resource?
Yeah, and what we try to do is when we do take the time to put together those things, that's where we're putting together some of the resource guides and putting together workshops as a result of it. So for example, we did a dyslexia workshop a couple of years ago that was incredibly well attended. And the presenter actually allowed us to put her presentation, even though we couldn't put the recording, she allowed us to put the presentation out on our website. So we try to take any of the presentations that the presenters will allow us to put out and memorialize on the website.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Isa.
I just want to add that I've attended many CPAC meetings as the school committee liaison, and there's really just great work that you're doing there, and the commitment to education and supporting parents in the district. I really do encourage parents who in special education community who want to be involved to really attend these meetings and really consider joining the board. You will learn so much and become a better advocate for your child the more that you know. And I imagine that those who have served on the board, it's really feel confident that they are doing everything that they can and should be to make sure that their children, receive what they're supposed to be receiving. And it's, I think, really a kind of a unique organization in the structure of the public schools, that it's, sort of a subcommittee of the committee, but really kind of a separate thing. And again, so parent-driven with guidance from our department, so that our coordinator of special education, or I guess now assistant director, special education, is usually there. And so there's a kind of access and insight that you have from being at CPAC meetings that you really just don't get in other places. And so I'd really like to encourage parents to be involved.
And we do take meeting minutes at our meetings, so we file our agendas. Technically, we don't have to meet open meeting law, but we do take minutes. We vote on them, and they are something that parents can and do request at times. But based on the emails that we get, we do, that's how we kind of try to think about our workshops. And so those workshop ideas were all ones that were suggested either in meetings or in other places.
Mr. Golden? Thank you. I'd just like to say what Mr. Axel was saying is very true. When you guys do critical work, and I think parents should absolutely, avail themselves of your work and join the CPAC if that's something that fits their family and their needs. But I would also like to ask, is there kind of in the course of the meeting, if I'm a parent watching this meeting and I say, I have so many thoughts about special education in the district, is there like a public comment part of the meeting? Like, is there a window within your CPAC meeting for folks to come in and say, here's what I'm dealing with, and just kind of let it out?
So we've tried that in the past. Unfortunately, at times it's turned into, sorry, I'm trying to think of how to nicely say it, a lot of personal sharing of situations that not necessarily appropriate for a public meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like the support group might be a better option for that. That's what the support group did look like for us. One of the things with the support group as well is other districts have done it, and they've had someone who has a level of counselor training be able to be there, because obviously it takes a level of psychological safety to be able to be there and feel comfortable sharing information. So I've been doing some research into some of the other CPAC support groups that are offered across the state to understand like maybe some best practices that we could incorporate.
Thank you. That'd be, if there's any way that we liaisons, the rest of the committee can support making the support group that venue you're looking to make it, please don't hesitate to ask.
I appreciate that. And then one other thing I'd be remiss, seeing all the kids at the Special Olympics was absolutely incredible. I purposely did not include any photos, even though I would have liked to in my presentation, because I wasn't sure about photo releases, but I was there with my son, and seeing those kids and all of the students like working so hard, all of the athletes, all of the students working so hard. It's a huge testament, honestly, to the high school for all of the volunteers that were there and everybody that spent so much time putting it together, because it was an incredible day, even though it was a chilly, wet day.
Thank you. Any final closing thoughts? I will echo what my colleague said. Thank you. I certainly recognize and appreciate the work that you guys do, and I hope we can make it not like 9 years before you come back again. And I'm so grateful and so hopeful that the next time you're here, the board will have grown and the membership roles will have grown as well. And so certainly whatever we can do, I think, as Mr. Golden said, to encourage folks to get involved, we're happy to do so.
I appreciate that. And like I said, ideally, we'll be back in the fall with some updates from the survey with some potential recommendations of things that we learned.
We look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Excuse me. All right, let's roll through this consent agenda real quick. We have approval of minutes, May 13th, 2026. Is there a motion? Mr. Ragsdale, second. Dr. Bryson, all those in favor? That is unanimous. We have approval of WEF grants in the amount of $7,658.24 for technology grants. Is there a motion? Mr. Turner, is there a second? Mr. Golden, all those in favor? That is unanimous. We would extend, as always, our thanks to WEF. Those amounts include $1,770 for Megan Breslow, $2,288.96 for Ed Kaiser and Charles Ronchetti, $987 for Sandy Guevara, Kelly Ayers, $254.48 for Heather Peachy, $880 for Diane Sika and Deborah Murphy, and $1,478 to Samantha Prindeville. So again, thank you to WEF for their generosity. We have approval of Woburn Street School surplus materials. Is there a motion? Mr. Golden, second. Mr. Ragsdale, all those in favor? That is unanimous.
I have a question.
You have a question
Yeah, I was
on,
just on the Woburn Street surplus.
okay,
The books, right?
they are books,
Sorry.
and they are going to be disposed of or donated to students to bring home.
Okay, I was just, okay, that's fine.
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
Okay, great. So that
I was
is,
gonna
that.
ask for a list, but that's okay.
So that remains unanimous. I'm sure we can get the list for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have approval of policies BEDH, JB, JC, and JF with a note from Mr. Ragsdale that the policy provided in your packet for BEDH does not include the brief amendment that we added during our discussion at the last meeting, but will be updated before the official policy is posted. Mr. Golden?
So I have just a thought. I think it's probably for a later period of discussion. First of all, I want to say again that I'm really glad that we're updating our public comment process here. This is not where we list kind of the process in the agenda where public comment is held. I know that other boards will have public comment after each item. I'm not saying that we need to do that now, but I think it would behoove us to at some point discuss when we do public comment in the course of events of a meeting. And we may just keep it as we do, but as a muscle and as an opportunity to discuss it and see what the whole board thinks. I think we should discuss that too.
I think that's a fair point. I would suggest that might be a good conversation for a summer session.
Yes. It may require that level.
But certainly, I think we're sort of discussing the mechanism of public comment,
Right.
but sort of where it fits and how we do it certainly is a part of a larger conversation.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. That's just my thought. So.
all right, very good. In that case, we have approval of said policies with the one amendment to BEDH. Mr. Turner moves approval. Is there a second? Mr. Golden, thank you. All those in favor? We have approval of policies to be removed, JEBA, BEDH-EJA, JEB-E, JF-E1, and JF-E2. Is there a motion? Dr. Bryson, second. Mr. Ragsdale, all those in favor? Okay, those policies will be removed. Thank you. And finally, we have warrants, grants 40 and 41, revolving 76 through 82 minus 81. We have local 123 through 130. We have food service 67, 68, 69, and FS6, circuit breaker 25 and 26, special education 69, 71, 72, and 73, and payroll 6/3/2026. Is there a motion? Dr. Bryson, second. Mr. Golden, all those in favor? That is unanimous. And that concludes our consent agenda and brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Yes, just a couple quick items. I want to update the committee and the community on the West Intermediate Window Project through developing, obviously it passed for capital improvements, but there's some engineering challenges about actually fabricating the windows that will go in. So the plan is on the 23rd, they're going to start work removing all of the old windows, build a temporary roughed-in structure with at least 2 windows in each building. As the windows come in, they will be replacing them, but some of them will have to probably happen in the early fall, and that will happen at night. So there were 2 options. One was not doing the project this summer or doing it in this aspect. I didn't think that trying to not do the project would be good, as we have other projects on the docket going forward. So that's kind of the plan. There will be kind of weekly schedules shared with teachers. They'll do a section of the building as the windows come in. It's not an unusual process based on the age of the building and what needs to be done, but I just wanted to let you know about that. The other, as many of you know, is that this weekend I have a conflict. My nephew is getting married, so I will not be able to be at graduation. I am actually very sad about that. I'm planning on meeting with the seniors during their practice tomorrow. That'll give me a chance to explain why I won't be there on Sunday. I did actually look at trying to get back from southwestern Virginia, but it's not possible. And at least wish them luck. So I'll be doing that tomorrow morning. So that's the very fast superintendent's report.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Questions for the superintendent?
Just to clarify on
Please.
the West, so it'll start on the 23rd of June, day after school starts, and it's just basically phasing of the project where there will be necessary build out of the casement.
Yeah, so they're gonna take all the windows out, they will build in, they will rough in, and they will rough in 2 like open and close sash windows, traditional windows, to be temporary while they wait for, and as the windows come in, some of them will probably be put in before school starts, but there will be a section, probably 2/3 of them, that will have to happen in that first part of the fall. And the idea is that it would be done before the frost flies, and the contractor is going to work at night, so it does not disrupt the students in the school.
And then just as a parent of somebody who had children in that building, it is fantastic to have new windows in that building.
Yeah, well, the running joke is even with 2 windows, you will be able to see out of them. So that will be an improvement even though you don't have a full set of windows, so yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you.
That brings us to the public comment portion of the meeting. No public comment submitted in advance, but anybody who would like to make a public comment is welcome to do so at this time. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Laurie Finney. I live at 26 Miller Road, Wilmington.
Thank you.
I'm commenting on transportation, which hasn't yet been discussed, so bear with me. I apologize if it's redundant or not exactly related. I did find the materials online, and so I'm trying to make an informed comment, but it is hard to comment without having seen the topic discussed. I saw that bus monitors were mentioned, and I wanted to mention I would support having at least one bus monitor for the district. There's been at least 3 incidents on Wildwood kindergarten buses that I'm aware of with kids getting hurt by other kids. Rhode Island eliminated deaths from bus incidents. They had a string of fatalities in the 80s, 3 within 18 months. They put a bus monitor on every K-5 bus and eliminated fatalities. They've not had one since. It's been 13 months since Massachusetts has had a bus fatality. So this is a very important topic. I understand budget-wise, hiring 1 per bus isn't necessarily reasonable, but I think 1 in the district that could rotate would be helpful. I also implore the school committee to please look into guidelines and policies to make informed safety decisions regarding transportation. If the police department will be involved in evaluating school bus safety as well, it should be looked into what they're using for guidelines and how they're making their evaluations. There are well-documented procedures for school safety transportation. Of course, my notes just completely locked up. But it's very well documented how to make safety decisions, and they're not based on opinions. There's a lot of facts out there. Things like avoiding left turns are safer than, or making right turns are safer than left turns. Avoiding crossings, particularly for younger kids, sufficient visibility. There's a lot of guidelines on that, and I'd really like to see Wilmington making informed decisions on transportation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others, please. Again, name and address for the record if you would, and we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please and thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm really tall, so I got to take this off.
You're fine.
My back was killing me last time, leaning over like that. All right, so let's start it now. Yeah, Kevin Moran, 1 Hilltop Road. A couple just quick administrative things. First, I'd like to request that the school committee on the agenda have an allotted time for each topic. I noticed that these meetings run well over the allotted time frame, and it's getting a little bit ridiculous in my opinion. I think it would be better for everybody to have it within, a time slot for each topic. Also, another thing, I think it'd be nice to have a planned implementation date for various topics. I know we talked about even the amount of time for discussing public comment. It was going to be 5 minutes, but I have no idea when that's going to be implemented. Is it going to be today, next week, 3 months from now? No idea. So it'd be nice to know that from the school committee. I'm going fast because I have not enough time. So the next thing I want to talk about is the policy for the buses. In all these documents that we have that are public facing, the bullying policy, as well as all the school policies, they talk about how the bus is an extension of the school, right? Well, I think that in theory, then the amount of safety that is on the bus, that is afforded on the bus for the students, should be the level of safety that's afforded in the school as well. But for obvious reasons, that's not true. How can a bus driver whose job is to drive a bus afford a level of safety to students that are sitting behind him on a school bus? So I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I think that policy has to be rethought out and probably be made into an actual standalone document or policy or handbook that parents, the public, can see this information and utilize that to reference that in the future. There's a lot of federal, state, local bus regulations that on transportation and safety that I believe that the school committee can utilize and look into for creating a standalone policy or handbook to have in town of Wilmington. Also, I noticed on the presentation that will be coming up later this evening on transportation, there's a lot of qualitative facts and qualitative and speculative information. I would like to see more quantitative information be provided, particularly around the number of incidents that occur on buses. I'd like to know how many incidents of bullying, how many incidents of physical harassment, unwanted, touching, unwanted things like that, verbal harassment, how many incidents have occurred in the district in the last year, in the last 2 years, the last 3 years, by school. I'd like to know that. The morning commute, the afternoon commute, I'd like to know all that information, and we're probably not going to get that tonight. So I urge the community to ask that information of our school committee to get that information. I think that's reasonable. I also think that more input from parents would be also reasonable. The district has everybody's emails from every parent to do this. I don't have that information available, but it'd be very easy to poll every single parent in town and say, hey, what do you guys want to see for transportation? I'd like to know the information. We'll do polls. We'll get quantitative, not qualitative, quantitative information that is actually valuable information as opposed to speculative information. And also relate to bus monitors. It was quoted as being $500,000 a year. I mean, I think that's a little bit high. I think that we can probably do what Lori proposed, have a rotating one in the district, maybe 1 or 2. Even just the threat for a student having the quote-unquote threat of there being a bus monitor on a bus will probably eliminate or very severely reduce the amount of incidents that occur on a bus. So I would hope that the school committee could look into this further, and I would like to ask more data. How much on that quote for $500,000? Is that, what are we paying those bus monitors? How many bus monitors? Is it hourly? Is it per diem? What is that? So I'd like to have those facts. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Other public comments? Good evening.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sean D. Hart, 63 Federal Street. First time here. Can I ask a question as part of my comment?
You can ask. We don't generally do question and answer.
Okay.
It's more you make a comment.
So I saw online that the district is considering implementing the Doorman app to get phones out of classrooms, which, by the way, I love the idea of getting phones out of classrooms. I've been a teacher for 21 years. I hate phones in my classroom. My concern as a parent is that a lot of times these apps that take over one aspect of your phone don't play well with parental control apps. So like I have Custodio on my kids' phones. I can say, you get 3 hours of screen time during the school week, go nuts on the weekend. Or I can say, hey, you're missing a lot of work, your phone's shut off till your work's in. My concern is that when Doorman goes in, do I have to take that off my kid's phone? And I've been looking all over their website, which is very pretty and has very little substance on it. And there's nothing on there that indicates that it plays well with other parental control softwares. So I'm just asking, I guess this will be my comment, could you find out before you implement this whether it's going to force parents to make that decision? I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional public comment? Okay. Thank you, folks. Hearing none, we are going to move into the new business portion of our agenda. With no objection from the committee, I'd like to take this a little out of order and do the transportation update first. So Lisa, if you're ready, come on up. Welcome.
Hi, how is everybody?
Good, you?
Good, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, so the first thing we're gonna discuss in regards to transportation that constantly comes up is safety versus efficiency. So naturally, safety always overrules efficiency. However, it's not a single fixed standard and it is a subjective matter. So what's safe for one particular family may not be safe for another. And that even goes within the household. What's, unsafe for your firstborn child, we see subsequent children, it becoming a safer issue. With Wilmington Public Schools, we currently greatly exceed Mass General Law in regards to who is eligible to receive transportation. And we also exceed our own school committee policies by providing almost every student in the district free transportation. As a result of that level of service, we do try to balance safety and efficiency and be fiscally responsible with it. So factors used in determining bus stops: age of student, the distance they would have to walk, sidewalk availability or traffic conditions, safe waiting area for them off of main roads, whether it be on a sidewalk or quiet side street, and visibility for oncoming traffic. Bus stops are reviewed each year, so routes are updated based on registration. So students that have graduated or moved out of district, we have those stops removed and add new stops for existing students coming in. Those stops are reviewed by the police department every single summer. And we do have an open door policy with our drivers in the big buses where we welcome comments and feedback. And if they feel a situation is unsafe, to report it and take their feedback on how we can correct that. In regards to bus monitors, no, we do not use them for general ed buses. They are currently only used for some of our in-district vehicles and out-of-district students. They are typically best used to support students with complex medical needs, and that is my experience with using monitors, and students who require more physical assistance. Like if we have car seats and drivers who would have to consistently get out of the seat to assist students, that's when a monitor is typically a good fit on a bus. They're not always effective at managing behavior from what I've seen. However, they are really good at reporting. They're an extra set of eyes on the bus aside from the camera system. The cost of adding monitors, and this is through our contractor. So if we were to use our contractor and obtain their monitors, the average cost is about $150 a day, a little over that, and that cost rises every year, and that's per vehicle. So it'd be $150 a day per 17 vehicles, 180 days a year, rising annually. Background checks on our drivers. So annual queries and driving record reviews are done both by the contractor and their insurance company. Should the contractor fail to appropriately query or review a driving record, all school bus drivers have a special certification from the RMV. If it's a CDL driver, they have a school bus certificate. If it's a minibus driver, they have a 7D certificate. So if the company fails to appropriately query, the RMV is doing that check every single year, sometimes twice a year, depending on the driver's age or medical condition. Also, the drivers are fingerprinted every 10 years. For those that live out of state, they do have to provide the RMV with an annual criminal and driving record from the state they reside in. If we have a driver, it is a forever look back. So we could have a driver who's been in the state for 10 to 15 years. However, 20 years ago, they lived in California. In order to get certification here in Massachusetts, they would have to obtain their criminal and driving record from the state of California before the RMV would issue it here. Our drivers also, DOT, CDLs also go through drug screens. There's a pre-employment drug screen, random drug screens, and in the event of an accident, there is post-accident drug screens. The drivers also have yearly and bi-yearly medical exams. So unlike a regular CDL driver who would go a minimally, 2 years, a school bus driver has to go every single year for a medical physical. If they're over 70 or have any type of health conditions, they're going twice a year. Also, if we have any drivers with pending legal cases, their certification is suspended until the case has been closed. And that's even for nonviolent or criminal cases that may be open. Our current contractor is NRT Bus. They're part of Beacon Mobility, the umbrella corp. I believe they have about 25 companies under them, and they are one of the largest in the country. We do have privately owned companies still in the region, however, there are very few of them. And what we see with those companies, they've had their contracts that they've been working with for ever, and they're not really interested in growing. They're kind of sticking with those communities that they've been servicing for a long time and have strong relationships with. How does our bid process work? So our bid process goes out every 3 years, and then we have eligibility for 2 extension years. So our contract went out for bid, and we began our new contract in the fall of 2023 for fiscal year 2024. We are just ending that 3-year contract and using our 2 extension years with NRT. So it will bring us through to about 2027. Typically, when we do get bids, we don't often, I think the last bid process, we did see another bid from another company, but that's very unusual. In regards to staffing, school bus driver shortages are an industry-wide issue across the country. We've all seen it on the news. And over time, the demand has just risen exponentially, requiring more drivers. So key contributing factors are population growth and increased traffic requires additional vehicles to adhere to timing and schedules. What a school bus could do 10 years ago, it can't do today. It needs additional time to do that. We have most households now have both parents working, so there's an increased demand for transportation to help get kids to and from school. Due to the economy and the need for individuals to carry full-time jobs, we're seeing less people apply for this split shift part-time job. The high safety and training standards required to become a school bus driver also deter a lot of new applicants from applying. It takes typically 2 months to become a school bus driver. You're going through daily training 5 days a week, several hours a day. School bus companies are now offering sign-on bonuses and paid training to attract more people into it, but we just don't see the applicants that we had seen in the past applying. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Dr. McCauley, he put his hand up. The rest of you guys waffle.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting everything on the buses and the transportation. I have a few questions. So one thing that keeps popping up around safety is, and which I know you've had to handle over time, is the safety around a bus stop, right? Mm-hmm. So can you just describe that process, and then what is the proper pathway? Let's say I'm as a parent, I feel it's unsafe and everything. Who do I talk to first? How does that pathway work? And then who's the final arbiter in that situation?
So typically, if a parent has an issue with the bus stop, they bring it to my attention. We'll discuss the issue. If you don't feel we're on the same page, I'll address it with the Wilmington Police Department so they can further look into traffic data and help with that determination and what their opinion is, and if they need, if they feel a change does need to be made in the area. If the Wilmington Police Department don't feel a changes need to be made, then the parent can go forward with the superintendent.
Okay, so it's really WPD kind of, they make the safety call, right? And then if there's still conflict, then it goes to the superintendent, and then the superintendent's kind of the decision maker with the parent and everything like that. Okay, thanks. My next question, a little different, is, so thanks for describing all the safety and background checks for all the drivers and everything. I was just wondering if you can explain for the benefit of the audience, what is a query process, and what does that yearly process look like? So is this like a background check for criminal record, you know, and then how are drivers like criminal records monitored? Right?
So, like I said, the contractor would be the one to run the query.
Yeah.
If they fail to do so, I have a school bus certificate, for instance, it expires on my birthday every year. Mine just passed. And so I go and get my DOT physical. From there, I have to fill out a query form. I have to have it notarized, send it in, upload it to the RMV. They run that query check. The district fingerprints every 10 years. I think, Jen, you handle that, right? The fingerprint. So we do the fingerprinting every 10 years, which goes through the FBI database. So that's going federally. And then again, with the criminal and driving records. So if you have lived in a previous state, everything's going to pop in that RMV database. They're going to see that break, in driver history and account for it. And we also, the DMVs and RMVs are now syncing up. So they're going on to federal motor carrier level, and all the organizations are joining together now. So even the need for criminal and driving records, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that go away in the future due to the communication between the state agencies.
Sure. So basically every year.
Every year it's done, yeah. If a driver's over 70 or even so much as has high blood pressure, you're looking at 2 queries a year, 2 medical physicals a year, and any type of, I don't know how the RMV gets notified of it, but they're quick with any open legal cases and things of that nature.
Okay, great. One last question. Yep. Your last slide, I think, was very interesting too, from how we're actually delivering this service, because Wilmington does deliver free busing for students, which is not the norm for a lot of our surrounding communities, and outlaying the staffing challenges. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on how we can solve some of these issues, or is they so structural that it's tough for this committee and us to solve and we just have to deal with it?
I have to be honest with you, I'm still exploring a lot of, I agree behaviors are a difficult challenge. And like we've said, transportation is a privilege for a majority of our families and students here. Mass General Law states children in kindergarten through 6th grade do not need to be transported unless they live more than 2 miles. In grades 7 through 12, a district's not responsible for transporting at all. I don't feel that's beneficial to the community. It wouldn't be beneficial to me as a parent either. This is the best way to support our families and our kids. But managing these behavioral issues is becoming certainly a bit challenging. I can say I did like the idea of a rotating monitor. I do think supplying one for every bus would be challenging. But to have a WPS employee to kind of assist with circling onto the vehicles and just being a presence, and that would be helpful. More video footage monitoring, possibly increase walk zones to limit down some of our ridership a little bit. We do transport quite a few students who are very close to school, just to cut down on the number of students on the buses. And I think just kind of firmer policies with student discipline. I mean, that's an opinion of mine. But we do try to get every student on board into school, and not impact that piece.
No, thanks for that. So it's kind of more so we can get the drivers, but it's just everything around the drivers is the bigger challenge right now.
Yeah, we're doing really well with drivers at the moment. We are very fully staffed for the first time, I think, pre-pandemic. We still struggle with having excess available drivers for our athletics and charters for our earlier trips that are going out at 2:30, where a majority of drivers are doing home to school or school to home transportation. But in regards to route coverage, we are doing pretty well there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. Couple of different quick things. In regards to the video, all of the buses have one camera in the front, or do they have 2, one from both ends?
We have one camera that faces the outside of the vehicle that is only used in the event of an accident. One from where the driver is looking back, and then one in the rear of the vehicle. We do miss a lot of behaviors in the middle of the bus. So any students in the middle, the cameras aren't really picking it up. And for our younger students who sit much lower below the seats and are less likely to rise, those behaviors go completely unseen. And even when watching the video from the driver's perspective, even out the mirror, most of the time, these students, they're not moving from a driver's perspective. They're so small, they're behind the seats, they're tucked away. So really a lot of the behaviors aren't seen.
Yeah, and that does go to the monitor thing of having perhaps a rotating monitor, but even if you had a monitor on, depending on where they were sitting, because they, in theory, shouldn't be walking around the bus either while it's in motion.
Right. No, a monitor
they
could not,
also just as easily, not just as easily, but aren't necessarily going to catch everything.
They're not going to catch everything. They're not going to stop everything. One of my favorite things to see in the camera before any student does anything is the first thing they do is look in that driver's rear view mirror to make sure that driver is looking out the front of the window and not at them before they start their shenanigans, so to speak.
One quick thing, I don't know if this is your realm or if it's just directly within the superintendent. For the students that are not on the buses, one of the things that we've noticed, particularly as the winter seasons get so much more variable, is we do have a lot of sidewalks near some of our schools where the lawn and the road are higher than the sidewalks. And so the ice accumulates in the sidewalks. Even after they've been cleared, 2 days later, there's a sheet of ice 15 or 20 feet long, and the only option for some of the kids walking is to walk in the road.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things from an overall transportation perspective. I believe it's been raised, and I think the town manager is aware as well, but just as an ongoing topic to be aware of, particularly for the high school and junior high students who are out inside the zone of not receiving bus services, keeping them safe. I have heard of falls and such things as well. So I don't know if that's yours or if it's much more at the superintendent's office. But as a transportation or getting to school topic, I hope we can keep an eye on that one.
So, I mean, there are a lot of narrow roads and in Wilmington, so I'm definitely not in favor of not providing transportation, just because of that. And it is in the winter of hells with every other day being an incoming snowstorm. Those big snowstorms, that was getting enough of the sidewalk clear was definitely an issue. So there's definitely challenges, but I mean, the streets that I've driven around, most of them are pretty narrow. And there might be sidewalks on one side, but not both sides. So it's, this is definitely, age of the town when it was settled, it was horse and buggy, right? So those are the same roads we're using now. We just happen to have paved them. And now we're driving SUVs and giant buses on them. So probably safer to have them on the bus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One last thing. A request, when the success of the transportation in terms of its efficiency, since we added the 17th bus and how we reorganized start times, this year was clearly much, much better at the start of the year and even into the year in terms of the timing required on buses.
Yeah.
We did not hear that topic raised as much this year.
Yeah, we're certainly, efficiency is the best the district has ever seen, even prior to start time changes. This is kind of what I was hoping we'd get to and what we'd see, and I do think we're there.
To that point though, I think what would be helpful is like 1 or 2 snapshots a year. I know we don't want to be, pulling data is not necessarily useful in large quantities, but we did have a few snapshots when we were going through some of those transitions, and they showed the picture of, where things were tougher and when things got better. But having a couple of data points, to the point of having more information about our transportation, having a couple of data points, at the end of the first month and at the end of February, whatever the 2 months would be, having a 1 week snapshot of where we are from a performance thing, just could be something that give parents a comfort as to what they can expect. If you're a parent in this school, your kid's going to that school next year, they can see what the data looks like as a way to help them plan their world and just understand how we are doing.
Yeah, I do think we've had a lot of improvements at the start of the school year. The first weeks were always challenging to say the least, but the registration system and the use of bus passes has tremendously helped. Staff is able to quickly identify who should be on a bus and who shouldn't, and it's also a cue for the drivers to say, hey, this is your elementary bus, we're in middle school now, this isn't it. You need to go, bus 7 further down the line or whatever it may be. So that's been tremendously helpful for the start of the school year as well, so we don't have students boarding the wrong vehicles and drivers having to crisscross town to get them home safe.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Ms. Lord, Dr. Burris.
Just a couple questions. I guess one thing I'm curious to understand a little better is how the buses work in terms of their timing. Like, is it one fleet of buses or two separate that go for the north side versus west side? I'm just thinking particularly on north side, sometimes one of the questions, right? We have the kindergarten bus that comes early and the elementary that comes later. So how does that work in terms of what a bus does from kind of through the whole series?
So we have 4 buses that service kindergarten. All of our entire fleet has to service high school, middle school. So every bus in our contract, all 17 of them are working for the high school, middle school. We have 4 separate buses that just service kindergarten plus a high school, middle school route. And then as of recently with the start time changes, we started mixing. So what a bus does in the morning isn't necessarily what the bus is going to do in the afternoon. And part of that is for traffic purposes. And then even with the dynamics of this town where we have 8 buildings, we calculated 26 minutes a day was spent just transporting in between schools. So every bus is wasting about 26 minutes in a day just going between the North and Woburn Street or the Shawsheen West or the high school and the middle school. So as we're seeing like these school consolidations, we'll have even better efficiency and more flexibility with start times when we can decrease the amount of time the vehicles are driving in between the school systems. So we have buses that, that will service the Shawsheen in the morning, but not in the afternoon. They'll go directly to the North and Woburn. We have some that only service the North and Woburn, for instance, our Andover Street neighborhood, which is in the far stretch of town, can't service the Shawsheen and then get to that corner in the period of time. Because a lot of the times there's only about 20-25 minutes in between drop-offs to get to your next route, pick up the students and get them off to school.
Yeah. Can I just add, this is the most complex school busing I've seen in 30 years because of the 8 schools. I mean, you really should have 4 schools. I mean, we're gonna make, in 2 years, gonna be there on one half of the town, and that will simplify it a little bit. But it really is a moving 3-dimensional Jenga game every single day.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and then you add that you transport everybody for free on top of that. So there's a lot more riders, there's a lot more places to be. It is pretty complex, and any one thing, and Lisa is out driving a bus. So we won't ask her to count how many days she's driving a bus and not just managing the buses too. So it is very complex.
And-
you have a
and-
large ridership, and you have a lot of places to be,
and being with the small streets and things of that nature, we have some roads where door-to-door service is just, it's the standard. It's not safe to do anything otherwise. For instance, Chestnut Street and some of these smaller roads that are very windy, have absolutely no shoulder, they're getting door-to-door service. So in our smaller neighborhoods where we can pull students out and have them walk over the main roads that have safer waiting areas, it's done so whenever possible.
It's actually gets to the second question I would ask, which is the safety of bus stops. When I hear about questions and concerns, I'm always curious a little bit, like I'm guessing, are the biggest safety challenges the areas, like are there certain areas that cause the biggest safety challenges? And then what are our options, like when you're trying to figure out the best solutions? Like, and it's funny, now I live in a residential neighborhood, so I'm sure those are the easier ones, but I grew up at the corner of Chestnut and Butters Row, so I'm very familiar with
those
roads.
ones
That
would
was
be
my
more
bus
of a
stop,
direct pickup. But even a road such as like Salem Street, we have a sidewalk on one side, so obviously the students have that live on that sidewalk side do walk to centralized areas, and sometimes the centralized area is going to be at a house number that's on the opposite side of the road. So it may not be an intersection, and I'm just throwing out a number here, but the students may walk down to the sidewalk to 1 Salem Street because the student at 1 Salem Street doesn't have accessibility to the sidewalk. So the bus is going to stop at their house, and then the students that do have the accessibility are going to use that sidewalk to get in and access the bus at that student's home or across from that student's home. But we do have a number of roads, and some where students, we do have them cross, others where we deem that they can't cross. A lot of that kind of what's been done in the district for a while. If I have a new area and I'm not sure about, I automatically go to the WPD just to gather their opinion on the matter. So anytime there's something new with a crossing, I typically just run it by them if it's not something so simple.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bryson?
I'll go fast. I did want to ask about, well, to say that I've noticed the school buses seem to be fuller. I know we've had some issues over the years where there were like 10 kids on a bus, and we had questions years ago about sort of that part of efficiency. Like, do we really need a full bus to send 10 students? It does seem like the buses are fuller now. Would you agree?
So they are much fuller than, and part of that is, you know, we have an economy where everybody in the household has to work a full-time job. So we don't have any parents home that are helping with transportation or things of that nature. Students need the bus. So with that piece, we're seeing increased ridership. Also with our high school, you know, that was probably the most empty vehicles at the time. And that's why we opted to combine them with the middle school to make them a little bit more efficient. And in the process, our high school students wound up gaining better service. So previously, our high school students would sometimes have to walk up to a mile outside of a neighborhood to access a bus because we did not go into any neighborhoods for high school students. They don't require transportation. So now they're getting closer service, and we're seeing ridership at the high school level raised because of that. The students don't have to walk half a mile or a mile to the bus stop anymore. It's more accessible to them, and they're utilizing it.
And so overall, about how many riders, do we know our exact number?
Our very accurate number would be 1,800 to 1,900 students utilize the bus every year. So I think that's about 2/3.
We've got about 2,800 in the district, so
Yeah.
1,000 are transporting themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to come back to this and talk, I would like to think about what it would be to have monitors, how many monitors, and what that might cost in bus fees if we were to have to implement that. I did a quick calculation with the $459,000, if all students were taking the bus, it would be about $163.92 per family. Now, obviously, that's not going to be every family, and if we do with some kind of a bus fee, there will be families who decide not to ride, and so then that fee goes up. So, but I would like us to at least explore that, because I feel like we've been talking about this for years now, and we haven't really made any moves. Or is it just that we do a couple of monitors and we see how it is, or just on those young buses where, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of the behavioral stuff is probably with the younger, I would hope.
It's happening
the
more
younger
so
children.
on the elementary and kindergarten side. Not that we don't have behaviors at the middle school level
Sure.
too. High school, those kids are too tired at this point.
They ride buses so often too, I think.
Yeah,
sports and
they're
whatnot,
just
so-
more mature at that age level. So we are still experiencing some behaviors at the middle school level, but it is really, really ramped up at the elementary level. Another thing I'm exploring too is what seatbelts look like and how they help manage behaviors. Seatbelts are something very cheap and easy that can be added onto the vehicles. You know, obviously in an emergency, if you ever had to evacuate the bus, they can pose a restraint. There's a lot of pros and cons to it. They can also be used as weapons. Kids start slinging them. You know, but just that piece, a lot of our behaviors stem from students who are moving. What if they're belted in and not moving? But then we also need to discuss the expectations and the use of the seatbelt. So if the student takes their seatbelt off in motion, what are the consequences going to be for that and things of that nature. So that's kind of something else I've been exploring and how looking at districts that utilize them and speaking with their drivers to see if they feel they've made an impact, because seatbelts are newer to the districts that are using them. So I'd be curious to see how the drivers feel about them, and I actually have some questions out that I'm waiting on responses from the bus companies and to see if that can be helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Agza, I don't think they're done with you yet, Lisa, hold on.
So how many bus routes do we run?
Off the top of my head,
What do you think?
4, 8. 17, you do a math? I'm throwing out
Right,
numbers.
17 buses, and they each do at least 2 routes.
Well, I'm gonna throw out numbers, you do the math. 17, 8, I'd say 10, and 9.
Okay, that's 44.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to 48, but yeah.
Okay, so
Those
that's a
are
lot of
48 routes.
so that's a lot of bus routes, and we just said that we have 1,800 to 1,900 students, and of course some of them are in families, so they're at the same stop. But if you picture like a map of Wilmington, then it's just dotted with families, and we have to find ways to take 17 buses and pick them all up and then get them to specific places and do it on time. And this is what I'm getting at, is that this is a very complicated feat to create bus routes.
In the morning, I have 90 minutes to push around 1,800 people on time.
So can you describe a little bit how routes are initially created? I feel like this is a little bit of a black box. Like every year it's just like, oh, the bus routes come out, but like they didn't appear by magic. I'm assuming that we use software in some way to at least initially create. I guess this is a question. How do we create these 48 bus routes?
I've used software previously prior to coming here. When I came to Wilmington, software wasn't available. So I don't use software. I just use my head. So I know the town very well. And our routes, as you notice, I don't know if you've noticed, but they do change every year. Not drastically, but we may have 1 or 2 that do change. And that's due to construction, development, whatever may change in the town. We have to adapt to it. Construction's a big, the DPW will give me projects they intend to do. If we're expecting road closures and anticipated heavier traffic, sometimes I'll adjust an entire route or 2 that school year just around that construction work.
Okay, and so I'm assuming that initially it's just probably about just like, all right, how do I get all these people within the time limits, around? It's, as you said, it's just like, 90 minutes, we have to get this many people from all here to these schools. When we're thinking about the safety issues on the routes, is that something that you're thinking about from like the very beginning, that it's part of the process from the start? Or is there at some point kind of a specific, let's just call it a sort of safety review? It's like, let's look at all of these routes, but now with a specific lens of, are there any problematic intersections? Are there any low visibility sites? Are there any bad crossings or bad turns? Can you describe how a safety analysis is kind of factored into the route creation?
So I think when I originally had come to the district, I had taken the routes that were in place that were kind of scattered, and I didn't see them as being efficient because they go from, say the Aldrich neighborhood over to the Butters Row neighborhood. We did actually have a bus that did that. So keeping the buses in a more concentrated area was a first focus, right? Keeping them confined into a neighborhood, but at the same time paying attention to how those routes were picking up students. Were they on the door side? Were they able to cross? And just kind of mimicking what the buses have done in the past and making additions from there. I know in the past we actually had students crossing Lowell Street in areas. That's a little bit more difficult today in Wilmington than it was 15 years ago because of the development that's occurred on Lowell Street. So we do make changes. I think things like that are just kind of obvious. I'm always paying very close attention to the development of the town and what we have going. And then, even always being in a bus and always getting out there helps me do my job better and recognize where these hazards are and where I see unsafe behavior for motorists, which, I see regularly at intersections, and just kind of taking that piece in.
How many, I think it's actually great that you are out driving these routes and not just making them because you see them firsthand. About how many of the routes would you say you've actually driven, probably not all of them, but I mean,
No, I've driven every one of them.
okay, all of them.
I've driven
There
every
you
one of them. I've also ridden them as a monitor. It's not something I can do all the time. Obviously, if I'm not in the office and I'm driving instead of being in the office, and anything occurs, I lose the ability to communicate effectively. By the time I get a call from the bus company that notifying me if they're an issue, I could have lost 10 minutes there. So now I'm delayed at communicating. I have to reach out to somebody else in the Roman house or school principals to help support with the communication piece. So it is difficult to be in a bus and effectively do my job, but at the same point, I do love being in the bus because it helps me do my job better. I get to know our students a lot better to better support them as well.
And so you mentioned that like when there's, if a parent has a concern, that one of the things we regularly do is bring the Wilmington Police into it for them to look at it and give an opinion. How often do they say, yeah, this is a problem, we should probably make an alteration here? Is that a somewhat frequent occurrence or like,
it actually, it doesn't happen so much frequently on when the parent is communicating with the police. However, when I do, for instance, like that first piece, if my thoughts do not align with the parents, the first thing I do is have the conversation and gather an additional opinion, and they'll do the traffic data. So a lot of the times the changes are made, the police will say, yes, Lisa, we've reviewed it, you gotta make the change. Okay, no problem, I'll call the parent back. The police reviewed it, they do feel this would be a safer issue, and the change is made. It's more so at the start of the school year where we hit all of the steps. So I have the conversation with the police, maybe the police and my thoughts align, then we'll wrap the parent into it and the parent can address it with the police before the superintendent. But a lot of the times, the conversation doesn't go past myself and the police department.
okay, but would you say that in a typical year, there is some change that is made because of a concern from the police, or is that more of an every other year?
If you have one a year, typically that's the most, only because a lot of our bus stops are established, they've been utilized, nothing's changed in the area, so they don't necessarily often qualify. It's not something, not that, obviously if there's more development and things like that, it can change the situation. But it's not often that, the police and I don't align on our thoughts of an area.
Okay, I was trying to get a little bit of a sense of, again, is this something that happens with any frequency, or is it like, it's been, it hasn't been since 2011 that they've had a problem with bus stop? I do try to acknowledge everybody's safety concerns. I'm very quick to notify the police just to ensure that we're in a good place, we're doing the right thing, make sure there's no information available that I'm not aware of. But it's not something that, in my opinion, happens frequently. We have a lot of questions arise at the start of the school year with new bus stops, but overall not a whole lot of changes. Okay. And if I can ask one more question, then I'll relinquish the floor. Do you know how many districts in general are using bus monitors of some kind?
I don't know any in this area. I've worked throughout the county and with other districts. I don't know any districts in this North Shore area. Well, I wouldn't even go as far as the North Shore, but the 93 belt, we'll call it, that are utilizing monitors. I don't know one district. I'm sure there's districts out there. I'm certain of it. I just don't know. I haven't worked with a district that utilizes that.
Okay, thank you.
So let me say this, I recognize that this is, a big topic right now, and there are likely several more questions, but we have a not insignificant amount of information still on our agenda. So one burning question, and then what I'll do is move us on to the next item. Anything else that we need to talk about, discuss, gather information on, particularly I think as it revolves around potential policy reviews we can compile through Dr. Thompson and get to Lisa. So make it a good one, Nick.
I had 3, so you really. Cool. So I'll winnow it down to 1. To what extent is there a knock-on effect from shifting one stop? So we've discussed at length the sheer complexity of having the 8 schools, and I'm thankful that we'll be going down to 4 over the next decade, making that easier for all of us. But when you move one, how much of a knock-on is that on the rest of the routes?
When I move one stop?
Yeah.
It depends on the stop. So if it's something where we have to turn down an additional road, sometimes that can only add a minute or 2. If it's something where that's not a possibility because maybe the bus can't turn on the road and we have to reverse the bus from another direction, that can have more tremendous impacts on timing for the other families, on getting to the schools on time. A lot of our routes don't have a lot of extra time to play with. So that, it's really situational based on what's happening and using, I guess, creative thinking. Sometimes it's a matter of shifting the student and shifting the change stop onto another route. Maybe we have another bus in the air or another bus going by from a different direction. Sometimes it's very simple and sometimes it's catastrophic.
Okay.
And one student can completely change a route.
Okay.
And we see that a lot in the summertime, specifically at the kindergarten level, where we have only one school population on the bus. We have students registering all throughout the spring and continuing through the summer, and some even at the very last moments. So I communicate with families on their routes, their new stop times, and then we have a new student pop on board that had just moved into town, and everything's down the drain. Start again.
Right. Well, thank you. I'll just quickly comment that I'm hopeful that we will investigate the monitor situation more thoroughly. So that's it.
Yeah, I think obviously there are still some lingering thoughts and questions. And so what we'll do is, the committee members can share those with myself and with Dr. Thompson, and we'll work with Lisa to put some information together. And I suspect this will be a conversation that we have again. But thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
All right, we have two additional items of new business, and then we have old business. So gentlemen, I don't know if you want to flip a coin or rock, paper, scissors, but we're gonna do handbook reviews, and whoever wants to go first is welcome to
Fight it out, whoever beats the other one to the table.
You want to do it together? That's even better. Come on up.
2 for 1.
This is great. We get the secondary handbooks in one just power presentation. This is outstanding. Efficiency at its finest. Joking aside, we appreciate your patience and, as always, for being here.
Want to start with the middle school? Any questions?
Mr. Carr, I'd love for you to highlight some of the more important or more substantive changes.
There really weren't a ton. As you saw with the summary that I provided, it was really mostly suggestions provided by our legal counsel. Dates, grammatical, formatting fixes. We updated staff information. We did make sure that we align some things with the high school, including the Wilmington High School dress code. That was a suggestion by council to update that. Food and beverage section language, we updated our McKinney-Vento contact information, added the link to the bullying prevention intervention plan. A lot of that stuff, we moved the old food service information, replaced it with the new WPS policy. A big change was the attendance policy that's recently been adopted, Wilmington Public Schools attendance policy. That's been added. So it's really just mostly formatting and nothing super substantive. We did change the schedule. We put that graphic in as the other one's now outdated.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Yep.
Questions? Dr. McCauley, start us off.
So my question is actually kind of around the attendance policy, so for both. It's around the excused absences.
Yeah.
So 7 days are permitted for illness over a 6-month period, right?
Yep.
But what happens if a student is legit sick for more than 7 days? And then what I'm kind of concerned about is that this is just going to encourage people to send kids to school that are sick, so they don't incur any penalties.
I guess I can try to take it first and then feel add. That's a That's not a Wilmington, those aren't Wilmington numbers, that's a state, that's a DESI number. With that guideline, so that's something that we have to follow. That's not just like an arbitrary Wilmington attendance committee thing.
Yeah.
I think that some of those conversations were had with the attendance committee meetings that we've had over the last couple of years, and that concern that you just brought up was brought up. But it's a state reg.
So once you hit that 8th absence, we are locally unable to excuse it. So continue as unexcused absences, even though we're largely in touch with family through the assistant principal, the counselor, the nurse, whoever it may be. But for that reason, our attendance letters start at 10 cumulative absences because you're starting to hit a point whether there's a legitimate reason or not, it's impacting, presence at school, making academic progress. And that's the reason that we use a cumulative number for that 10 absence letter.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And I think it's just good to understand that it's from the state, not a Wilmington specific thing. So, okay, cool. That was my only question. Thank you. But handbooks look good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCauley. Other middle school handbook related questions, comments, Dr.
I
Bryson?
have a quick follow-up on the attendance. What
Please.
happens if it is excused? How do we see that on their report card or their transcript? It's not on their transcript, or attendance is not on their transcript, but on their report cards it is. Is there does it differentiate if it's excused or not?
I don't believe so. It would
I know
be
it doesn't.
The state doesn't. Yeah, the state doesn't differentiate between.
So if they're absent, because I think sometimes parents will be confused, so if they're absent, but we send a doctor's note in,
They're absent.
they're still absent.
They're
The
absent.
absence doesn't go away.
So chronic
they're like, "But why are they still
absenteeism,
absent?" I'm like, well,
yeah.
they're still absent, they're excused, but the absence still sits there. It doesn't get erased.
It's
right?
something that and I'm sure Ryan deals with it too. It's conversations I have every year with parents. But Massachusetts says that you're chronically absent at 18 absences, regardless of why you were out.
Yeah.
So that doesn't change.
The one place parents might see it is in Aspen in the daily attendance codes. But the new attendance policy, I think wisely, identifies the code and defines the code for the different types of absences, tardies, dismissals.
And it creates more consistency across schools too, where we had realized through the work on the attendance committee that some schools were using codes differently. So now we're all going to be using the same codes the same way, which will be helpful.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bryson. Other questions or comments? Mr. Isaac?
Just a quick note.
Sure.
That on the cover of the handbook, between 2026 and 2027 should be an N dash and not a hyphen.
I will. Sorry. I'll take that under advisement, Mr. Ragsdale, and make that adjustment.
Sorry, this is my punctuation hill that I will die on.
Sounds good.
My mission in life to
Are the
change
rest of
hyphens to
them
N.
correct?
We will be sure to have that remedied by the second read, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Yeah.
Anybody else? There's no follow.
I'm sorry.
Are you raising your hand?
I thought I was, but I
Sorry, we're
can't
an
find it
educational
now.
institution. We should use
Proper grammar is important, I agree.
Yeah, that's an agenda item to talk about this.
You keep,
I'm sorry. Well, I'm trying to figure out can I go?
yes.
On your letter, Mr. Kyra.
My principal's letter?
Yeah, it is my absolute honor to serve, and then serve is underlined, and so I thought for a second it was like a hyperlink, which it's not, and I'm just not sure.
It's because that was edited, so
So it's
you're seeing,
Just the comment. Okay,
That's
so I
just,
was like-
that's why.
I was like, that's an interesting place to put a hyperlink. I wonder what it's for.
Yeah,
but
that
okay.
was, it's been edited.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else for the middle school?
To that point, when we upload it, just real quickly, we'll upload the viewing only
Yeah.
version so that those marks will go away.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Gendron?
Sure. So we began with past input from Mr. Ragsdale and made sure we had an M dash. We got that feedback at Program of Studies, and Mrs. Scholasco and I
Props for you. Props for you. Usually you let me know those things, you know?
So I hope that looks good. It looks better.
Cover looks great.
All right. Mrs. Scholasco also helped with some design and bring more photos into that. Similar to Mr. Kyra, largely legal suggestions. I tried to note legal suggestion on the lines that applied to. The others were some of our internal adjustments. We receive information from food services, information from the health office, information from student services, and we appreciate their help in inputting these. The attendance updates is definitely the most significant, but there are other pieces. One part that I would call your attention to is in cyberbullying and acceptable use, with the evolution of artificial intelligence being used to interact with photos or materials or, depictions of students or staff, that's now defined in our unacceptable use policy and included in the bullying sections. Everything else was really just tightening up for consistency, tone. It is an interesting evolution of the document, which exists across several principals and administrations, but I think we've made some progress in trying to unify the tone and the language of the document. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments? Dr. Bryson?
Well, I think that looks great. I just noticed there's different font on the attendance policy, on the attendance pages. So just to note that as you make your final edits.
Yep, that's a good point. Thank you.
I like it though. I don't know. It looks a little different, but I think you'd have to change the whole thing. So I don't know if that's worth it.
Ms. Lord.
Just a general question about the attendance policy. I was on the Woburn Street SAC, and so just a general question that came up was how we might communicate out to parents. And obviously you have the handbook, so that maybe that covers it, but just across the district with the new policy, like how we can proactively and positively communicate it to families ahead of time versus you all of a sudden get a letter in the mail, you're 10, whatever. So it was something that we were talking about that we thought to help families understand, the importance and that it's the laws and all that. So I'm curious for your thoughts on that.
I think one of the goals of this district-wide attendance policy was to reduce, the principals communicating different information about attendance. So, we can definitely work with central office on that. And I can definitely foresee like a district communication that's then followed up with the similar or same exact language by the schools being like a really effective way of communicating it proactively, but from multiple contacts.
Yeah, I think that it would probably be best for that type of district communication to come out at the very beginning of the school year, and then that would allow us during open houses and things like that to reiterate that information. I'll probably mention that at our sixth grade welcome event over the summer to parents that are just coming to the middle school for the first time. But we'll look for other opportunities to spread that.
Great.
Good. Thank you. Ms. Turner.
It's a bit derivative to both of these two policies, handbooks, but the AI piece. One of the things that's an interesting dynamic is we talk about what the students are allowed to use, being things that are approved and within the right student data privacy. We don't have that same requirement. Obviously, it's implied for staff, but it's not noted. And so I think it would be useful for the students to understand that there's for lack of a better way of phrasing it, the acceptable use is the same across both students and staff. And so if staff are using generative AI to help students learn, the students should have comfort that they're using the same tools that the students are allowed to use. And I think the way it's worded is it basically says, students can only use this. Staff can just do what they need to do, encouraged to explore. And it doesn't necessarily link their use with the way students are allowed to use. And I think it's setting examples of the right way to use the tools and the right way to engage them, because the kids do need to learn, our staff do need to learn. We need to know how to engage with this type of technology, but having the students, especially at the high school level where they're savvy as to what their teachers are doing, having that sort of balance between the two, I think would be, and even clear communication about the balance between the two would help encourage the students to use it in the best possible way when they do.
Yeah, it's good feedback. I think the district is working on updates to the generative AI, and for the same reasons that district-wide attendance expectations are helpful, I could see that being useful there. I also think that there's work being done on a district staff handbook, which would be another great place for that to land.
And it's the type of topic, we'll do it this year, and we'll do it again next year, and we'll do it again the year after. Yeah. For several years, it's going to be a moving target as to what we want to do and what we should do. And it's going to be a race to keep up with it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Eisen.
So I do want to commend the N dash on the cover.
Thank you.
You're missing a comma on page 17.
Well, no, but I do have to draw attention to the hyphen in the principal's message. Should be an M dash between 2026 and 2027.
I see.
And also in the front matter where the school committee is listed, Nick's name is missing an H in Nicholas.
Wow.
Spells it with a
How could you do this to me?
Nicholas Golden with an H in there.
Thanks to Golden.
It's not the first time it won't be the last.
And the only more substantive comment is I wanted to see if you could describe one of the changes is the cross out. This is on page 26. Was the cross out? There was a line: students absent from school or class due to truancy are not allowed makeup privileges, and that was removed. But I don't think there was a note like of whether that was a comment from legal counsel or why that was why that change was made.
So thanks for asking. It was a question by legal counsel. It was also a point of discussion with our school advisory council as we talked through handbook options. My understanding is that originally went in at a time where we weren't seeing the degree of absenteeism that we're seeing right now. And I believe was intended to limit options for students who skip school. However, truancy is more, I think, generally described to refer to unexcused absences, especially in light of the new district attendance policy and definitions of absenteeism. And certainly in my time at Wilmington High School, I have not seen teachers refusing to allow students who miss school, albeit unexcused, from making academic progress. Our beliefs around learning are that all the standards that the state says students should learn are important, even if they happen to miss school for reasons that don't fall on the excused list. And for those reasons, we felt like language that might suggest or might create a tension where students don't have the opportunity to keep learning after being out, was counterproductive to our mission. And so while there are still limitations and timelines on making up work, the more aligned expectation would be that students do have opportunities to make up work, to make academic progress, even if they've been absent unexcused.
Okay, I can see that more. I think that truancy, like as you said, seems more like I think of that as just like skipping school. That's like student misbehavior, but unexcused absences is a broader category, and honestly, it's often initiated by parents, and so I can see not wanting to kind of just put that in hard writing that just like you simply cannot do that. And this preserves a little more flexibility.
Yeah, and we do approach it from a problem-solving perspective. So the district attendance plan does have tiered interventions that go into effect when students are missing significant numbers of school days, and that better represents how we try to re-engage students more so than forbidding that they make a missed math assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing nothing. Thank you.
Thank you both.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate
I
it.
wouldn't go too far.
Staying up with her?
You may get questions on your thoughts about the cell phone policy.
Okay.
Which brings us to our first item of old business, the cell phone policy.
For you.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Nice to have you.
Good evening.
Dr. Johnson, do you want to start us off? Do we want to turn it right over to Ms. Dunham? How do you want to?
Oh, we didn't rehearse.
Do you want to tee it up for us?
So yes, we're in the kind of special position which the legislature has put us in, or more accurately, the Senate has put it in, where they did not pick up the cell phone law like the House did last September, August. And have kind of sat on it. So there are two versions of bills that have passed. They're sitting in conference committee at this point. A final version has not gone to the governor for signature. If we shared the actual laws, the bills with both of you, you can see that the House one is a little more developed, let's say, than the Senate one is. But both of them agreed that by law, and the only thing to go is conference committee and then to the governor. They've all said that they're going to put it in place, is that, the cell phones will need to be in a place where they cannot be used from the start of the school day to the end of the school day. So that is really a non-negotiable. We're kind of waiting for the law to actually, because that will be dropped into a policy. The challenge we have is that if we're not moving now on how we're going to implement what is outlined as the law, we're not going to be in a position to actually put it in place. And, I brought up Aaron and I were talking the other day, and I brought up the example of how they changed the discipline rules around suspension, passed that in August, and didn't tell anybody, and then implemented it in October. And remember that when schools were not ready to do that change, we want to make sure that we are ready. And, I will remind the committee that you had asked for a look at the cell phone policy prior to the law being passed. So that work has previously occurred. We probably will need to go back and look at the policy. But we need to be in a position where we're actually implementing how we're going to implement a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones during the school day. So with that, there are all sorts of options. You can tell kids they cannot bring cell phones to school. I'm not sure that everybody would be happy with that. You could tell them they all have to be dropped off in the office. That would be a big, heavy lift. We could spend $50,000 to $60,000 on what once upon a time was called a Faraday bag. Now they're called yonder pouches. There are issues with that. And kids are very adept at using cell phones. They can text you without looking at their keyboard. They can do it in a bag. They can do it upside down. They can do it in the dark. We all know that. Teachers do not want to be in a position where they are the cell phone police. It takes away from relationships with the kids, takes away from teaching time, et cetera, et cetera. So, we have a proposal for the implementation. It is looking at an app. This is newer one. There will be other ones coming out. It has been piloted. It is, I don't want to say green lighted, but it has been, the pilot has been endorsed by DESE, and you can customize how it is implemented. So no matter how the actual law comes across the governor's desk and to us, we will still have some flexibility with how we do this. And ultimately, if the parents don't want to have the app on their phone or the kids to have it, then there are options where they would drop the phone off in the front office on the way in or not bring it to school. So it's not an absolute, but this is, a viable, for me, it is a lot, my concern with using pouches that are magnetically sealed is if you had to open 750 of them at one time with the limited number of special magnets that you have, that would be very difficult. Okay? With this, you can punch a button from the main office and you can activate a phone. So if you had kids that were scattered, God forbid, because of some sort of emergency, they would have access to their phones. Okay? Yonder pouches do not do that. Putting your phone in the office locked up does not do that. Is it perfect? Is it probably going to evolve? It's probably going to evolve very quickly in the next 2 months, and it will continue. There are already at least one, if not two other companies that are starting to come up with other products. It is much less expensive than buying a whole bunch of places to store cell phones. And it takes the responsibility off of the teacher, it takes the responsibility off of the administrators to do that. So these folks know a lot more details about the particular app that we're talking about than I do, so I will quiet down and let the experts speak. Thanks, Don.
I think just to answer some sort of general questions, Dorman representatives have met with Massachusetts legislators about this very issue as it relates to policies that will be set forth. As Superintendent shared, it is a much more cost-effective measure than the other options that are available. What puts Wilmington, I think, in a really good position is we have been discussing changes for some time now, and I think we are ahead of the game in terms of implementing something that is adaptable to a bell-to-bell mode that could easily happen. There are, I think in addition to that, there are ways that we can oversee which applications are, not monitored, which apps on the phone are disabled, excuse me. So I think to answer the question that came up in sort of public comment earlier, is that if there is a parental control app like a Life 360 or something along those lines, we, as sort of the high school, the middle school, would have the opportunity to decide that that would be an app that is disabled or allowed. I think, again, speaking to sort of the cost efficiency, you're not necessarily paying for, paying for sort of the magnetic cards that would be in classrooms. You're paying per student, and the cost is $5 per student. The door tags or the cards, they are not battery powered. They don't need to be hardwired. Again, they're magnetic, and they can, if they're broken, they can easily be replaced. I don't foresee that being a challenge. I don't think that we will have issues with installation or bandwidth. I think also just considering that Dorman is a smaller company, when I have spoken with administrators from both Watertown High School and Westfield High School who are actively using the application, they have actually referenced that working with a smaller company has created better communication. Any issue that might arise, they're able to connect with someone and remedy that almost immediately. I would say in our process in communicating with Doorman, I have found them to be incredibly responsive, very quick to share whatever information is requested or needed to move forward. They are already in process of working with sort of several districts similar to the process that we're involved in now for implementation in the fall. They have guaranteed that one of their sort of head staff will be present for our implementation. It would not be a contractor. It would not be anybody else. Additionally, I know there were questions again there's been lots of questions about sort of privacy, and I think that was sort of outlined in the memo that was provided to you in terms of how it relates to other privacy-related issues for any applications or any data that we're using. I don't know if that sort of brings us to questions, or I know there were some specific questions. I can keep kind of going and responding to those, but I want to make sure I'm speaking to what's needed.
Yeah, I think we can open it to questions if that's all right with you. Who wants to start? Dr. McCauley.
No problem. So, thank you for the overview. It's a nice idea, but I do have some concerns about the nascency of the technology and everything, and then just the small startup nature of the company too, for something that is also going to be something we're going to be asking staff and students to put on their own personal devices, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel we owe it to everyone to make sure we do our proper diligence, get all the right information. Seems like we've started down that path, but I feel there's a few gaps that we still need to address. So that's where some of my questions are coming from. So one question I had, and I think it was in the memo, but I think it would be good to explain this a little bit better, was, has any outside counsel reviewed the privacy agreement or associate privacy plan? I read through it. I noticed a few things that may be concerned, but I'm not a lawyer, so my opinion should not be listened to. But I was just wondering if any kind of counsel has looked at it, because one of my concerns is through my line of work, tech companies are notorious for putting out certain terms, you may agree to them, or they say we don't negotiate, and then they change them without telling anyone. So what are the safeguards around that?
So again, you're asking me to speak about legal matters and technology.
So I don't know if that's better for you or for Dr.
expertise,
Thompson.
but what I will say is that Doorman it's an approved vendor through the National Student Data Privacy Consortium. We and Massachusetts districts can subscribe to their existing agreements. I think additionally, Doorman is a part of Wilmington is a member of the Student Data Privacy Alliance, which provides participating school districts with administrative and legal support for reviewing student data privacy agreements and vendors. Doorman's privacy agreement and associated privacy documentation were reviewed through the Student Data Privacy Alliance process prior to execution to help ensure alignment with all applicable student data privacy requirements and best practices. I am reading directly from that because there's no way that I could.
So this Student Data Privacy Alliance, these are the lawyers, right?
Yes.
That they've looked at this, they've vetted it through, so this meets any kind of standards for implementing this technology for educational, education in Massachusetts, right?
In alignment with FERPA and various other local, state and federal law on student data privacy. So, and they've got, in order to be part of that consortium, they have to align and agree to follow those.
Okay, great.
And there's all sorts of software. Our student database, for instance, has got all sorts of information in there that's private. They are aligned with that consortium.
Okay, great. Then my next question is, it's kind of around the size of the company, right? The company appears to be maybe 2 people from what diligence I did. Started up about a year or 2 ago. Seems like there's a lot of interest, right? So it's great they're getting support when it's 1 or 2, but scalability is going to be a concern, right? So I was just kind of wondering has our IT department looked at their back-end support and security systems? Are they up to kind of standards?
Has looked at their what?
Back-end support and security systems. So how is the data being stored? What's their back-end data infrastructure? What are they using to protect all the data, to protect their systems and everything from a hack? So there was that Canvas software you read that happened, right? So what is their security procedures to prevent that from happening so someone doesn't go in and then all of a sudden they have access to the Doorman app and all the users, right? And then are they adequately staffed then to handle these issues that come up? So do they have a fleet of contractors? Do they not? Is it just the co-founder and the CEO, right? So that's kind of some questions I have. I don't know if we have answers on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
One point to that point. So there's a part of the DPA that talks about sub-processors. That's what you're getting at.
Right.
By default, they don't have to, the sub-processors have to comply. But what I would ask for a brand new company is that every year we are granted access to the list of their sub-processors, because those are the companies you're talking about. They're the ones who provide the cybersecurity for Doorman.
Yeah.
And so that's,
and then has anyone in our IT department looked at that? Because I'm not equipped to do that.
Yeah.
Is this up to standards for protection?
I know that was asked, and they are using Google as the data storage piece.
So they only use one sub-processor that relates to student data, and that's Google Cloud, where the backend and database are hosted.
Okay.
Which is the same. That's the same one we use for all of our Google stuff.
Thank you. And then my last question around the size of the company is their financial solvency, right? So we can go down this path and then they could run out of funds, right? They're venture backed. I know venture backed very well. It's quite a world to be in.
Yeah.
Have we looked at, have we asked for a balance sheet? What's their cash burn like? How much cash do they have on hand? How solvent are they going to be? Because we can go through all this and then are they going to run out of funds within 9 months?
Right. we did get an answer on that.
Yep. So as you said, they are venture backed. They have raised funding in the single digit millions and are backed by Reach Capital, which is one of the leading education focused firms behind companies such as Desmos, Class Dojo. They assure that they are well capitalized to support current and upcoming school partnerships.
Yeah, thanks. I think I would need a little more than that, because that seems like a kind of like a canned response. You know, like trust us, we got money.
Yeah. Well, and they're the first company, but there is a second one that is coming on scene and probably will be up and running this summer.
Sure.
So there will be competition, going forward.
Can I add something maybe along the lines of competition? So, we being Wilmington, I think are on a different timeline than many high school.
Do you mind? I don't think WCTV will pick you up if you're not at the mic.
So just one thing to add on the note of competition. I think Wilmington is on a different timeline than many other high schools in the state, which are waiting to see what the state guidance is and then making their plans. And the reason I bring that up is this spring, we meet regularly with the Middlesex League principals and Ken Gordon, who's not Wilmington's representative, but I think represents Burlington and some other towns.
That's Bedford and Burlington.
Yeah, thank you. Came to speak with the principals because we had a lot of questions about whether there would be flexibility to make the policy specifically during class time and not during passing times or lunchtime. And there were some that wanted to advocate strongly that it just be instructional time. So we really appreciated Representative Gordon coming. He made very clear that no, that legislation has moved to a phase where that won't be amended and schools do need to prepare for it to be a year-long day. And it was really interesting watching other principals ask Watertown to repeat how doorman is impacting their school. And I do see as more and more high schools in the state have to put a plan together that actually works for all the reasons that Dr. Thompson said. Even in that room, I could feel the demand increasing, and I felt a little bit fortunate that our timeline had put us in a position to identify what seems to work for us sooner rather than later. And so I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about how it seems principals in the area are working on plans and what alternate timelines might be. But I don't know if there's a certain point where they say, sorry, we can't accommodate more schools. So that might contribute to kind of the timing of decision making.
That's kind of my concern is they're going to want to grow, right? And then how can they scale? How can they support and can they handle that? Right. To me, that's
but I would think that the scaling up would be the startup, getting it on the phones, people educated how to use it, getting it set up how we want it set up internally, aligned with the policy and the law, and then it would be support obviously and what have you, but not as much of a heavy lift.
No, sorry, I meant the doorman company, how they can scale and grow. Because if they sign on 10 clients, I mean, if you question 2 people can handle support for 10 clients. Issues happen all the time, right? So how are they going to have enough funds? $6,000 a school district isn't much to then build that support network and everything, That's all I got. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
All right. I apologize. I have a lot. So just kind of the very first thing is I am very supportive of us doing something and soon. I think there's the evidence on impact of learning is so strong, and I also really struggle with how much time and attention our teachers pay on phones today and how kids are using them and how they have to interact with them. That shouldn't be, they do so much already. Asking them to also monitor phones is a problem. Not in any way should we not do whatever we can to help the teachers, help our students learn. The legislative process and DESE, I mean, some of my colleagues who were here through DESE's great adventures during COVID know things can come very, very late from DESE. And part of what I would be very concerned with is the Senate and House aren't close in their bills. They're substantively similar, but they're not close. And the Senate gives DESE 6 months to prepare guidance that we then have to comply with effectively immediately. So if DESI gets, let's say it becomes law on June 1st, they would have until December 1st to give us guidance. If we put something in place September 1st, it doesn't conform, we have to change. And so we'd have to do all the work twice to roll out whatever would then comply. So that's the legislative piece, which I feel like it's great to be ahead, but it would be bad to be ahead and be wrong. So that's like if DESI tells us, oh, what you did just doesn't work. I mean, we'd have to start over. And I don't want to be in that place then to try and figure out, how do we unwind what we've already wound into. The Watertown experience in watching their school committee meetings and listening to what they've gone through, the current process for that company is they update very, very frequently the app. Every time they update, every student has to rebadge. And so if we have the monitors at the 2 or 3 main doors and it goes down in the middle of second period, every student would have to go back to, because that would unlock. When they've done updates, it's unlocked the phones. And they've had to go rebadge. And it's one thing, this is what I understand from what the Watertown principal said in their meeting, with the students would have to go in class, because they have them in the classroom, rebadge during the middle of class to relock their phones. If to comply with the law, to do bell to bell, we have them at the doors, because they wouldn't be then in the hallways. Because as soon as you get in, you won't have to go to one class to lock it. You'd have to then go back to the front door to lock your phone. We have 700 kids tromping down the hallway. It doesn't seem manageable. I understand they're working on their update policy. So just the process and the immaturity of the way they do updates, at least so far, has not worked for Watertown. They're suggesting that they will make a major update in September. The way they described it at Watertown was that it would simply lock the phone, all features of the phone. They didn't say in the meeting, and this is a point of clarification, they didn't say in the meeting that then you could then choose to unlock the phone piece and whatever other apps you needed to. Obviously, we'd have to be able to accommodate IEP-related apps, but the way they described it was everything. The other side of what they described is today, it doesn't lock certain things at all. It doesn't lock the cameras, but I understood, which for phones is one of the larger problems for teenagers. So there's levels of the way the app functions and the way they update things that are problematic. I do wonder with a startup company, they've given us a price for this year. What's the price for next year? Software companies, we got you hooked. Guess what's happening next? So I'm going to keep going.
But I have responses. I have responses to your questions already. So if I could start. So from what I understand, let me see where to start. Regarding the updates, we had reached out to Doorman, the representative that we have, and I think they were slightly confused by the question, but did say that application updates are only released overnight.
Okay.
If it means the mode that Doorman is set to, then that can be adjusted so that students only have to tap once per day. Okay. With regard to sort of how we are going to set up the app as far as restrictions, I mean, that's really going to depend on what, guidance, right? What will be, implemented through the legislator, what will happen through DESI. But at this point, if we were to implement Doorman tomorrow, right, we as a district would be able to decide which applications we want to restrict access to. However, there is the option of setting it like a bell-to-bell mode. And you would do, that first half of the day would activate those restrictions, and then phones would automatically be unlocked when the school day is over. My understanding is that regardless of the mode, there are ways to deactivate the application if there were to be an emergency. I believe students have, the option to unlock. Administration would get an alert, on their dashboard if that were to be the case, so that there would be, a method to know if that is taking place. With regard to the camera, in the more restricted mode, the camera will be blocked. However, that's not enabled by default, so. And I think, again, as it relates to sort of the camera, I mean, there are sort of expectations and rules around using a camera during school hours.
Yeah, and just one point of clarification is if we were to implement this product, it would not be at the entrances. So I think that visual of students rushing to entrances, we would not recommend that. Doorman recommends putting it in the classroom. So the students report to their first period class, tap in. Doorman also has functionality to communicate with attendants if that's a procedure we wish to do. But the students tapping in would align with their attendance being established as ready to go. So all the classrooms would have it. Right. Students would tap in at the beginning of their first period class. That would automatically time the device to be locked until 2:35. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to clarify what we're envisioning, and I think that's.
And these are your old-fashioned NFC tags, like a sticker, for Christ's sake.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
it's not.
That's very helpful. Depending on the number of students we have that opt out, do we have a reasonable place in both offices to store 50 or 100 phones? That would seem like a burden.
Right. So as of right now, my understanding in speaking again with Watertown and with Westfield, and Doorman has agreed that the number of sort of opt-outs is in the single digits, that there are not building administrators and main offices are not collecting, 10, 20, 30 plus phones. We have a system in place right now in both buildings where phones can be sort of safely stored.
Okay.
We have a larger number right now based on progressive discipline with phone violations that are safely being stored there.
And then I think this is my last one, so I appreciate all of the time. The one last, and this is as much a point of reference or as anything, is Watertown Middle School is not using Doorman. And my understanding based on the meeting I saw is that they're not going to use it in September either. They're going to stick with the policy in practice they have now, which actually aligns with the memo we got from Shawshing Tech. Both those schools are using the, if we see it, it's taken mode of self-roam policy, which does put the burden on the teachers and or administrators for sure. And I'm not sure I'm in the position to advocate that sort of practice, but I find it fascinating that Watertown Middle School, watching the high school, has decided not to adopt, or does not, the principal at least does not favor adopting Doorman. I don't know if he'll be told to, but his comment was, we like what we're doing. It's working for us, so much so that the kids aren't even asking for their phones back at lunch.
I would also add that those policies are not in line with what what the law is supposedly going. The basis that both bills agree on is bell to bell. So it's great that they passed all these policies and they're not going to do this and other thing, but they're also not preparing themselves for October because they won't be ready when this passes.
I think what I would also add is what the working group has been able to do in both its phase 1 and phase 2 is not just look at how do we sort of limit sort of cell phone use. We've also talked about really having a robust digital literacy sort of curriculum to accompany this. And so much of what I feel is attractive about using the Doorman application is we're not just sort of taking away phones, we're also teaching what is proper use of phones. So I can't speak to what Watertown Middle School's principal sort of thinking is in terms of not adopting this, but I know that we're presenting a more comprehensive plan about what we think is best for our Wilmington students.
I think, Mr. Turner, the biggest difference between maybe Wilmington Middle and Watertown Middle is that they're telling you they're fine with the way things are. I'm telling you it's a problem. And I think that, Ryan and I have worked really hard over the last few years to create as much consistency and vertical alignment as possible. So that had a lot to do with us. We had even explored, maybe we start with just 8th grade. But I really think that the problem is 6 through 12, and I know I would be in complete support of starting it.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Ms. Lewis.
I first just wanted to say, and particularly for any parents listening, I was a middle school teacher when we change the rules about the cell phones, and I'm such a big supporter of them, of not having access to phones. It made such a difference, and the kids' availability for learning, the culture, the focus, like it was the lack of behavior issues. So just from an educator perspective, it's such a positive change. And, the neuroscience of learning is also very much that the technology, the distraction detracts from learning. So just in those things, I'm a big supporter. So then it becomes, just the implementation. So my question, I think you just alluded to, which is there a backup option for parents? I mean, because it sounds like a little bit, the conversation has sounded like this is what everyone has to do as doorman, but it sounds like maybe no, like if people don't want it. So if that's the district solution, our primary solution though, there are other options. Like someone could, obviously leave it at home, but also just drop it off at the office or to their first period teacher, whatever it is?
Correct. So if that were to be the choice, to not download the application or use Doorman, then yes, they would store their phones in the main office to be picked up at the end of the day. Or the choice, and we know that not all middle schoolers have a cell phone or a personal device, that simply just not bringing that item with them to school. So there would be 3 options.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like that's important to communicate out too, because otherwise it does sound like everyone's expected to use this app. So like there are options for people.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Mr. X.
So I was going to make the point which Dr. Thompson made, which is that the just put it away and keep it away. And we've had this question also from parents as well, that just like, well, why can't we just do what we've been doing? Teachers collect them in cubbies, or they just have to stay away. And if we see it, we take it, and then there's discipline. And the reason is simply that it does not appear to comply with the law, which specifically says that the following method shall be deemed sufficient, and then say secure storage of personal electronic devices. And they also mention the use of technology that renders the device inoperable. There's also, at least in the House bill, another method approved by the Department of Education, but obviously no one yet knows what that might be, and there might not be anything else. So the simple problem with that is that it doesn't appear to be an option that we're going to be given. I think that a few advantages to the doorman solution, one which has been mentioned a little bit, is there are some students which do get to have access to certain applications on their phone, and the bills, both bills make specific allowance for IEPs, for the use of accommodations, for medical purposes, if you need to monitor your blood sugar levels and so forth. And with let's just say sort of a yonder pouch type solution, well, those kids just have to get their phones, and they have their whole phones and everything on their phones. And Doorman allows you to actually be precise about what apps they can access. So again, if you need to be able to monitor your blood sugars, then your Omnipod app is available, but nothing else. And so it has certain advantages there. I absolutely do recognize some of the concerns raised by Mr. Turner, Mr. McCaldy, and others about just everything from kind of, is this this small fly-by-night kind of company, is it going to be here for the long run? It's all very new, and are they going to be here? But to me, I see this as a very low-risk option of something to try. And if we turn out that for whatever reason, we don't like this, or the company goes belly up, then all right, well, we delete the app and we have to look for a different solution, which we would otherwise be doing anyway. And so I think that this is a relatively, again, sort of low cost. There's not a lot of infrastructure. There's not much stuff that needs to be unwound if we go down this path. Obviously, we'll have spent some time setting things up and so forth. There's obviously always some opportunity cost and some money spent. But I think it's relatively easy to just say, if this doesn't work out, then we just take the tags down from the doors outside the classrooms and delete the app and look for a different solution. But I think this might work. And if it does, then it could well be the best option that we have in front of us. And again, the best option that does in fact comply with the law. We are working within a limited range of compliance possibilities here.
I would note, though, that the bill is still not final. there is still that conference committee and the governor still has to sign it. So that, while that is the current state, subject to change.
That yes, absolutely. Although there's not been any indication that any substantive change is coming. No one is saying, ooh, no, we got to go in there and tinker around with these bills and fundamentally change what they're doing.
Conference committee
just need to
mess anything up.
Never.
Right.
But absolutely, yeah. This bill is not signed, and so until we have a signed law, we don't know exactly what we're dealing with.
Mr. Goldman.
You know, when I joined the school committee, I didn't know just how much prognosticating about the legislature we would end up doing, but it's, you know, it's, no, listen, Mr. Ragsdale, I think captured it really succinctly. To me, when we started this process last year, beginning of 25, the working group, we did a survey of parents, and really the two issues we were trying to balance was addressing cell phones and balancing that with parent and student needs, parent desires and student needs with regard to access to their children, which we totally get. And that is kind of the impetus behind doing this app. But I think Mr. Ragsdale has really captured really well here is, to me, if we decide this is either not working for one of the serious reasons you bring up and I think are appropriate to bring up, we can revert back to, instead of a handful of students bringing their phones to the office, they're all bringing their phones to the office, right? And that's just what we'll do, right? I mean, so I went to a high school where students were expected for their phones to be away all day. Like any policy, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. But as Mr. Ragsdale again brings up, to me, what is really appealing about the app is if there's an emergency, students can call, right? If they need to talk to their parents for some reason, they can make a phone call as needed. They can access apps for their health, for their IEPs and accommodations. I do have a question for you, Aaron. If we go with this app and a student leaves their phone in the office, their parent doesn't want them to download the app, which is perfectly valid, can they still go to the office and call their parent with their phone from the office, or like access like a medical app, like meet a need that they would need, but they would just go to the office to do it, right?
Ask permission at a time that's appropriate.
Right. I think if it was to make a phone call, I mean, I think you would sort of do the method that you perhaps would do at the younger grade levels, the elementary schools. There's always a method to reach out to a parent if there's something urgent that needs to take place.
And I guess they're probably the case where if we were to not have the app, but just have or those students, their parent has a preference for them to not have the app, but they have certain IEPs or special cases that they need to have access to their phone anyway. Do they just get to keep it? Is that how do we meet that, right? If they're legally required to be able to have it in the class, but they weren't supposed to have it because they don't have the app.
Right.
We would just let them have it, correct?
So I know Mr. Ragsdale used the example of like a student who needs to monitor their blood sugar levels, things like that. I think we would have to figure out what's sort of the most creative option to make sure that they can maintain their phone and what they need to do. If it's written in their IEP, it's written in their IEP.
Yep, right.
I think probably they would be able to have their phone with them.
Cool. So again, I think for me, it's like we try it. If it doesn't work, we'll just revert to the kind of put your phones away. If we see them, you're getting rid of them, we'll keep them in the office, and then we'll see what the tech advances in the next couple of years.
And again, as we move forward, we will continue to maintain a smaller team that would be comprised of, the two building administrators, the director of IT, and myself, where we would be constantly, reviewing and discussing what's working, what's not working. If there are major changes that have come that no longer make doorman an option, then we already have an established team to start to figure out what to do next.
Gotcha. Can I ask one more? However, I do want to know, because there's this world where we adopt it, and then if we decide we don't like it, we switch back to some other kind of more analog approach to this a year later, fine. That addresses, we wouldn't have some of the risks that I think Mr. Turner was enumerating about the process items, but what Dr. McCauley was bringing up about the data access piece. Between now and then, I would really like to hear a little bit more from this company about protecting student data, because if we try it for a year and we don't like it, that still is a year of access they have, and then there might be terms and conditions that would give them retroactive access to data or allow them to keep certain data. I know we've gone over this, but I like to add my hat to the ring of, because otherwise I think it's almost a perfectly good option, perfectly good
Yep.
approach we're doing here, where we try option A and we don't like it, we do B, but if A involves a year of access and there's an issue, that's my little caveat.
Yeah. So I think just to, if I think I might be responding to your question. So Dorman's privacy policies are built around the standard K through 12 software privacy frameworks. They only collect the minimum student data necessary to operate the application. So name, student ID, and whatever is sort of the documented policy, like compliant events that are taking place during the day. They do not sell student data. They don't use it for advertising or collect any unrelated personal device activity. And they fully support outside, counsel. I think to speak to your legal question, reviewing the agreement, and happy to respond to any specific concerns. So
Thank you.
there absolutely is a willingness to be transparent.
Thanks.
Dr. Jones?
Yeah, so just a couple points. First, in both versions, the Senate and the House, both of them are talking bell to bell. Cell phones not able to be accessed by students. Doormen, if it ends up for some mysterious, sudden 180, 360 turn, you could still go with less where it's during a classroom. You still have that, scalability, you have that custom ability there. The advisory that came from the state on the status of the bill is recommending bell-to-bell policies. The memo that I quickly threw together last year, Doorman does not track students' locations or movements. Attendance is recorded through a deliberate student-initiated action. The student physically taps their phone on an NFC tag that's installed in the classroom. Nothing is triggered passively or remotely. The app never activates on its own. Okay. The data flows through Doorman's infrastructure, which is securely hosted on a Google Cloud platform. Okay. Student taps in, the compliance event, timestamp, class, and student identifier is sent to Doorman's servers. Nothing more than that. And again, they're part of the Student Data Privacy Consortium. So they seem to have done all of the pieces. I mean, yes, they are a new company, but it does take the cell phone policing off of your teaching staff. It does take some of that off. It offers options, it offers customability, and it offers students with different needs to be able to have their phone set up differently so that they can access those apps or other things that they need. So,
Can I? You can make a comment or a question if you want, and then I've got one or two.
Quick one. So going to my original comments, learning and teacher and their time spent on this topic. I want us to do something, but if we do not agree to Dorman, what's plan B? What's option B? What if we tonight say no to Dorman? What are we talking about next in 2 weeks?
Probably talking about pouches, which is a significantly higher investment, and comes with it's an all or nothing. It's in a bag where it is not able to access anything.
So that would be your plan B.
But that's probably $45,000 or $50,000.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah. My reading of the situation was that we could make them all drop it off at the central office and not have to go the pouch route as a plan B. Is that a misread of?
I'm not sure we have the infrastructure to take
That's-
680 phones.
Right.
And
I
keep
mean,
them in the
you're talking collecting 750 phones every day.
Or tell them to leave them in their lockers? Is that?
That is not going to meet the letter of the law as it's currently sitting. They have to be disabled. They do not have access to it.
I'm gonna move on, Dr. Bryson, and then I'll come back to you.
So I have two quick comments. One, to the working group, thank you. And as I usually say in situations like this, you put so much time and energy, and I'm trusting the work that has been done. With that, I hear my colleagues' concerns, and so my thought would be, I'm in support of this, like Mr. Ragg, like, yes, I'm ready to move forward with this. Could we have our council look this over? Has our council looked this over, either in the special ed side or on the our regular council? I think would just be a nice way for us to feel like we're doing our due diligence.
Absolutely.
That's all I got. Okay.
Ms. Lord.
Just in the clarifying, because I do think we should have a plan B in case, for whatever reasons, but if so with the pouches, students put that in, I don't understand how they work. The students put it in a pouch, and then what do they do with the pouch? Do they keep it on?
There's a magnet that locks it.
Okay.
In order to get it out of the pouch, you have to go back and use the magnet to unlock it.
But where do they leave the pouch?
They keep it with them.
They keep it with them.
They keep it with them. But it's locked versus
locked.
it being off, but in their locker, so they could
signal going
unlock
in
it
or out of
themselves. Okay. I guess my other question would be, is there a system, like we used to have like an iPad thing, right, where they were all in there and locked in the classroom. So if students dropped it off to like their homeroom teacher, could there be like a locked box or something in each class versus the whole, everybody going to the office, right? Because I can understand that's really not feasible, just like a locked thing that teachers collect. And that's not what I'm recommending. I just do think it feels like it's wise to have a backup.
I didn't do the survey with the faculty, but they are not interested and they do not want to be managing cell phones.
And I think if you're creating alternatives to even the pouch, in the research that I think our group sort of collectively reviewed, was that you have students that are constantly trying to circumvent what the sort of expectation might be. So using something other than their cell phone, putting something in the pouch that is not a cell phone is something else, having multiple cell phones. It just, students are just storing pouches. It's just, there has not been, I think, a good solution about storage for the device itself.
I think I'm reflecting on the pause about what's Plan B, and I'm thinking about the process. And it was a working group designed to make a proposal about what that working group thinks is the next step. And it wasn't part of really our work of saying if our proposal is not, for a good reason, but like we didn't say this would be our second choice and our third choice. So that's why I think like it would be a little bit like not representative of that working group for one of us to say Plan B is this. So, I think Dr. Thompson talked about why some people might advocate for the pouch as Plan B. You've talked about some reasons that we would need to do some serious soul searching on how we might fit and staff all those phones. So we just, that wasn't really part of our finished product for the working group.
That's good. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And parent, what I've heard, not necessarily in Wilmington, but in general about parent concerns is if there's an emergency, how will my child access their phone? How can I access, if there's an emergency? Pouches do not necessarily solve that, okay? Having them locked in the office does not solve that. Hopefully there's not an emergency, but that is another thing to be considered.
So, echoing what Dr. Bryson said, I appreciate how much work has gone into getting us to this point. And I also will express a level of frustration because while I am grateful that we are sort of ahead of the game and we're proactive at this point, I find it frustrating that the state is going to drag their feet until the last moment, sign a bill, and then we're going to have to implement it in sort of a rush. That notwithstanding, refresh my memory, the working group, if I recall, did some survey of parents and sort of gathered this, like, what do you think? And while I understand it was pretty heavily favored for a bell-to-bell ban, did we talk about, maybe not doorman specifically, but how would you feel about your kid putting an app on their phone? Was there anything thinking like that when we did the survey originally, or did this kind of come up through sort of version 2 of the working group?
Right, so the surveys that went out to stakeholders, that took place during sort of phase 1. And shortly after, I think we had presented our findings and our results, there was now this proposal, right, in the House and the Senate about doing a bell-to-bell policy. So going into phase 2, we did not survey specifically about what do parents and caregivers think about using an application.
Sure.
It was one solution that spoke to sort of an upcoming sort of ban of devices during the school day.
Thank you. That's helpful. I also wonder, sort of to the comments, the questions around legal counsel, legal thoughts. I certainly am also not an attorney, and I wouldn't pretend to be. I'm guessing if this has been approved by DESE, that the council at DESE has probably reviewed these things, though I wonder if perhaps that's something we could ask them. I say that because while I appreciate that Doorman responded to our significant number of questions, they are a company trying to get business.
Agreed.
And their responses read very much like that. I'd be interested in what the state thinks or what our council feels about these things. So while I suspect we will likely vote on this evening, it would be smart, and I would ask that we reach out to DESE, that we reach out to our council and have them, if they haven't, review these things. Because while I don't want to be caught sort of flat-footed, and I appreciate that there's an implementation timeline here, if something happens, if Andy comes back and says, whoa, red flag on this thing, we still have some time to consider potential option Bs. I will probably sort of grudgingly support this because I think it feels to me like sort of the lesser of evils at this point. Like we need to do something, and we're trying, like Mr. Axel said, try it for a year and see how it goes. I don't love it, and I appreciate that parents can choose to download the app or not. But I don't want to be sort of stuck scrambling if and when the legislature passes the bill. So those are my thoughts. But we're getting long in the evening, but certainly, Dr. McCaldy.
Can I make a comment off of your comment?
Please.
More of a agree with looking at council again, and I also would like our IT department to critically look at the app and their infrastructure on data storage, security, and everything too. Because I feel that's missing. Some of the answers we got from Doorman didn't read too well and gave me that assurance. You know.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
To that point, we got their the DPA document. We did not get their commercial software agreement. If you're downloading the app, there's a software agreement behind that. And that would be very, very helpful to see that. I mean, even to the point of what are our rights of audit of their business. Not just the business, but of their operating procedures.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, are you requesting the commercial contract? Is that what, is that?
That was my request. I'm
okay.
not speaking for Dr. McCullough.
I think that's a great idea. And then have our council take a look at that too.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
I mean, I guess the other comment would be that I feel like our policy, whatever it is, if we do decide to go ahead with offering Doorman, should be like students may either use Doorman or what, like, or leave their phone at the, you know, so that if anything goes wrong in the Doorman process, whether it's with the company, whether the app goes down or whatever, we already have like some other option in place that teachers and students are prepared for. Like, oh, Doorman isn't working today. I know that this is what I need to do with my phone, you know, and so that covers us in terms of not only just saying this Doormans are one thing.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think assuming we vote this evening, that the next step is some policy development around the sort of the implementation of this. So, yeah, that would be part of it. Draxel.
Just one more point, which is that we've been obviously completely focused on this secondary issue, but we also need a policy and implementation that, and it's, of course, it's less of an issue, but we do need something for elementary, even where students are generally not bringing phones, but there are a lot of smartwatches, and so we're going to have we're going to need to have something different, because I don't think anyone is talking about using that at the elementary level, but there will have to be something.
Sounds like the policy subcommittee is going to have some work to do coming up. All right. I appreciate the conversation and the input and the feedback, and I'm going to move us on, and I will see if anybody is interested in making a motion as it relates to doorman.
The
Dr.
policy, right? The cell phone policy vote.
Not policy implementation.
It would be more, I think, around implementation.
Is there a motion written?
There is not a motion written. Because help me out with this, we would need to determine what we're going to do with implementation before we develop a policy. Is that right?
Well, we're waiting for the.
The policy will essentially come from the state.
Right, the policy will come from the cell phone bill law being passed, basically.
But we need to determine what steps we are gonna take to implement that.
Right.
I don't think we need to vote. Do we have to vote on the implementation?
I think we need to vote on whether or not we are gonna use this application as our method of implementing the bell-to-bell ban, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry, it just seems like, that's fine, but it just seems like this is like an implementation, isn't necessarily something, this isn't like we're voting to ban cell phones throughout, like it's not it's sort of like the way we're gonna do it. So it seems like, it's not typically something we would vote on. David, help me out here, am I wrong?
You can.
It's an expenditure of funds. So from that perspective, yes.
Sure. Then but that's what I'm saying, where's the motion?
Yeah,
Like, so that's the
motion
motion, right?
Motion is to enter an agreement and spend the money and go from there.
Mr. Golden, you want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I move that the school committee approve the district entering into an agreement with the Doorman app company to acquire their app and services to be part of a forthcoming new district cell phone policy.
I think that sounds good. Carrie, do you think that gives you what you need to expend funds?
That's Mr. Turner.
Yes.
That's a made motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Looks like Mr. Genry might have something. Do you have something?
I might.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, thinking about the handbook presentation tonight, in our handbook, when it refers to personal electronic devices, it does reference the school committee policy. And so I'd just be hesitant about implementing something that contradicts or is not aligned with school committee policy. I trust you all to guide us in the right direction, but I do think those two things would both exist and say very different things.
I think that would be a question maybe we could pose to council when we reach out to council and say, hey, we've got the handbook, we are sort of this is what we're doing. What language do we insert here for the time being?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and we still have a cell phone policy, it needs to be updated. So.
I was gonna say, couldn't we just update our policy to reflect before the law? I mean, we could do that. There's no, so I guess I'm wondering, so to me, when I saw a cell phone policy vote, like I kind of thought this was like a duo. It's not really a duo. This is more like, we're just talking about doorman, right? So it's a little bit, to me, I'm fine to vote on this, but to Ryan's point, this sort of like,
The policy will need to be updated.
the policy absolutely has to be updated. Yeah.
Yes.
And to me, it
Definitely.
seems like that should almost happen prior, but whatever.
I think even though there's a world where I think in the abstract, maybe it should happen prior, I think that the common sense would say, we need to decide which thing we're gonna do. We need to decide on this, and then that'll give everyone the final go-ahead to craft the policy that'll come back to us.
That's kind of how I envision
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the law eventually requires a formal district policy that has like a whole bunch of different things in it. At least one way for parents to contact students, at least one way for students to contact parents, exceptions for the, translation and IPs and all that stuff. So, and that needs to be approved by the school committee. So eventually, by whatever it is, September 1st or whenever deadline they ultimately set in the law, we'll have to have a formal written policy approved by the school committee. But this is basically just like approval to move forward with a plan. Because obviously we can't, because as we've been saying, we can't just wait till then to just start.
I mean, if we wait
to start
for the
doing
state,
things.
we're not gonna be able to implement. stuff, we're gonna have trouble.
Right, to my point, we could do our own policy update.
Sure.
And then go back and change what I'm
Yes.
saying, we've been
Yeah.
saying this whole time, we've been ahead of the game. And now we're like, but we'll wait, but I'm like, well, why do we need to wait? We can just move forward. We're already ready for implementation, so we should just get that done, bring it forward, so we're not holding up our handbooks.
Right.
Till September, like they need to get those out, right? So just saying the order of things is a little funny to me too.
No, sorry, I guess my thought was that we would determine sort of the process, update the policy based on that, and then we may still have to update the policy again when
Fair.
state guidance
Yeah,
comes out.
that's
Yeah, I mean, you could update the policy Monday, you know.
You look maybe concerned.
But the policy, to Mr. Reichel, all due respect, I think is actually pretty simple. The policy is we shall have a cell phone ban, and what we're suggesting here today is that it's a bell-to-bell ban with these exceptions and with this caveat for a parent that will do these things. And so I think at least as a placeholder policy, it could be really short.
Yep.
In paragraph or less, that we could presumably, we've got 2 meetings in June, there's a first read and a second read. I'm volunteering in the policy subcommittee's time, of course, by saying that, but we could do it relatively quickly. If that's the concern, the policy piece, at least at a high level, could come quickly.
Let me try to simplify this, because I feel like this conversation is getting a little bit away from us. We have a cell phone policy. We are about to vote on whether or not we're gonna use doorman to implement sort of how cell phones are utilized in our buildings during the day. We can update the current cell phone policy to reflect that short term. And then, knowing that the state is gonna pass more comprehensive legislation, we will revisit the policy again to update it for that. Fair? Okay. Motion made and seconded to what Nick said regarding doorman. Any additional discussion? Dr. McCauley?
Yeah, so I'm just going to comment on how I'm going to vote on this. I feel I'm still missing a lot of information about doorman, and I don't think I'm in a position to vote yes until some of these concerns are addressed, because I think they are quite significant. And one thing I would like to implore all of us is, I understand there is a proverbial timeline, but let's not think that we have to rush to do this until we have all the proper information in place before we make the right decision. Because what I would hate to have happen is we make the wrong decision because we're trying to rush against a timeline. This could work, this could be great, but I feel we just don't have all the information in place to make that informed decision.
That's fair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I was thinking that you could make the motion contingent upon the reads that come back from the lawyer based off of what's on the floor, which were the policies. I mean, again, I don't know how to summarize it that quickly, but the policies in terms of the data privacy, you know, the technology, you can make a condition upon the outstanding questions. So that way, if those questions came back in the affirmative, once the information went back to the school committee, then the funds could be expended.
That's a fair point. Would that?
I think I gotta see the result. It's a great idea, but I think I have to see what the feedback's like, to be honest.
I mean, I want to bring up something that I think no one's going to want me to bring up, but the problem is I agree with you that bringing up this idea of running out of time may see us potentially miss something. I think that's an obvious and important thing to say. However, because of the way the policy works, we couldn't kick this to the next meeting, right? Could we kick this vote to the next meeting and have council take a look at it between now and then, or would we literally be running out of time?
I mean, I think we theoretically we could. I don't know that it has to be decided in this meeting. My only hesitation is that with 2 meetings left in the year, we could meet outside of regular normal times. We are running out of time in our sort of regular sessions. So, yeah, I mean, if the will of the committee was to, you know, there's a motion made and seconded. If a majority of us voted it down, we could certainly bring it back at the next meeting pending some of this information from legal counsel. I mean,
Thank you again for everyone from admin in the district working here for your time and being here this late. I'm very fine with even rescinding the motion and trying to like revisit this next meeting after council and then using the June 27th meeting if required for like a final policy read. I'm fine with that, but we're 7 people.
I mean,
it's just a pain in the butt.
I mean, I feel like we want some consensus is what I think Nick is saying. Like, it feels like Mike brought up some really good points. I am concerned the timeline here is notice to families in June, caregiver information night, July. And so my question, I guess, for you, Aaron, is what does this do if we shift this to our next meeting and bring it back with some of the additional guidance we've asked for? Now, I know you've answered, I would say, most of what was brought up, but there seem to be a few things to Mike's points that I'm kind of like, I hear what he's saying about not being comfortable. What are your thoughts on that timeline?
So the June, sort of that June date was more so in response to what would be discussed and voted on here. So if that doesn't happen, then that does shift the timeline to perhaps, it would be a notice to families. This is our policy and this will be our implementation plan immediately following a decision here that's made within the school committee, if that makes sense. So I purposefully did not put exact dates because that would just have been impossible at this stage. I think we would just have to slightly shift around, communication and opportunities to then do, question and answer and provide, families an opportunity to learn more if that's the direction we go in. But I don't think that it would be a drastic difference.
And when you send this out to families, you're hoping to send it out with the revised policy,
Correct.
Is what I'm hearing. So that policy does need to come through here really together with the doorman, which we don't have an updated policy as of yet. So
May I ask, I just want to be clear on sort of the information that needs to be sort of obtained, right? So it sounds like getting feedback from DESE around their, opinion or, relationship with the doorman application. Having, legal counsel review all sort of pieces, as well as ensuring that our IT department can really look into sort of any infrastructure, security, software related questions, and then also make sure that the committee has a copy of the commercial contract. I just want to make sure I have all the key points. Okay.
Is that accurate or something else?
I think Stephen wanted council to look at the commercial contract.
Council looking at all of the documents.
Okay. Mr. Exer?
I just want to point out a concern I have, which is that especially on the council side, that this can't be done before the next meeting. 2 weeks is not a lot of time. That would be like getting it right at the next meeting. If we're actually talking about getting it in advance of the meeting, as we typically do for our packet, that's a really tight timeline to expect our legal counsel to potentially review a lot of documentation. I'm not sure if it's realistic. Or at least I think we can't assume that he'll have time to do that. That is a big ask.
If I can, it took 2 weeks to get the handbooks back. You know what I mean? It took 2 weeks to get the handbooks back from legal counsel, so it would be probably very difficult to get something like this back.
So how about from a different perspective or a different way of seeing this, and Carrie, I think made a good note here, is if we say contingent upon review of council, and then if council says, whoa, we can just bring it back to committee then? Is that possible?
Well, effectively what you're suggesting is if council raises objections, and presuming it takes, let's say this were to be voted in the affirmative tonight, council raises objections, we would need to then have a July meeting. That's what we would be signing ourselves up for. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just as a point of fact, in terms of the timing, if we got a no, this is a bad idea, it would be earlier in your process of deployment, so it wouldn't be as much time wasted. But we'd have to then meet again to review what are we going to do instead of doorman, and it would be, we'd hear back to the prior points somewhere between the 3rd and 27th, probably closer to the 27th, and then to actually get to the point where what's the next plan, we would need to be meeting in July to make those decisions. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or otherwise, it's just, that's the timeline. And
So
I
I'm
think
gonna,
that's practical.
I'm gonna suggest that it sounds like there's correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like there's a consensus that there's just maybe not quite enough information. We could rescind the motion, put this, sort of table this to our next meeting, hope that council can review it, see if we can get some information from DESI. And, you know, if worst comes to worst, we take a vote, or we have the flexibility and the ability to meet outside of our normal meeting times. We just have to find times that work. So if you guys aren't, sort of fully on board, fully comfortable with the information you have to make a choice, then we rescind the motion, we table it until the next meeting, and we try to get what we can get from DESI, from our council, from DESI's council, whoever. So, I mean, I personally would like us to keep this moving forward, but I would never presume to push that on this board. If you guys still need more, then we don't vote, we wait and we get more.
Let me just ask one question. Was there someone from IT on this working group? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I know. Who
Yeah.
was that?
The director of IT.
Angel. Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And in working group 1, Ken Lord was part of it, and then in working group 2 it was Angel. That's more when doorman became a more prevalent part of the conversation.
And so I'm assuming, as a part of that group, Angel would have reviewed this and also is in support of it. Is that
Correct.
accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So the IT
Yes.
part, we've had that covered because he's been a part of this working group. I just want to make that clear.
But I would like to
It's
hear
actually
that
through
from
the chair, so.
Sure, go ahead.
I would like to hear that instead of assuming,
Sure.
right? You know,
Yeah.
Did he really look into this?
We can certainly get information
You know.
from Angel, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead,
And I think that's, all helpful questions, and I think perhaps even based on my understanding of the working group's scope of work, like perhaps like this level of detailed technical analysis, I think, our group saw its responsibility as proposing what the group thinks is the best solution, and anticipating, perhaps even assuming that some of these technical details will work themselves out after the working group's recommendation. So I can see where that gap led to these kinds of questions tonight, which I think will be helpful to resolve.
Okay.
Ms. Lord.
I guess my concern is either way, we need a solution for this. So if it's not Dorman, then what? And it may or may not. So I'm wondering if we can, for the next meeting, have like a review the policy, and can we write a policy that has whatever the bell-to-bell guide wording is, but either through a district provided app or students leaving their phones, like whatever it might be. I understand all the questions. I would support moving forward with Dorman from everything I'm hearing. I think it's, like we said, a chance to pilot it and good, but I also very much don't feel 100% like we should put all our eggs in that basket, right? Like our policy, I think, shouldn't just be about Dorman. It should be about how we're going to solve the problem, and it can say more than one option, because that way we can keep exploring, but we may not have all the answers we want for Dorman, like honestly for a while, right? Like given that they're a new company, I don't know that in a month we're going to know for sure whether Dorman checks all our boxes.
The motion is yours.
You want to just get a feel for who's in support, like who would move this forward, or would you prefer to just?
I think I know that it would carry tonight. I think that's pretty clear. The question is whether I want to rescind it or not. Do we want to meet in July, or do we want to meet later in June? Maybe that's the real question.
I mean, I would also suggest that if this gets approved tonight and we get some information from council that is contrary to what we desire, we can also vote to nullify or
blow it up.
Whatever.
That's what I'm thinking. So I would like to make an amendment to my motion.
Sure.
Amend my motion to add, as Carrie's suggestion, Mr. Simmons' suggestion, contingent upon an approving review from district council, period. Okay. So Still a motion, but now with that nice language attached.
Do we second amendments?
Yep.
Would anybody like to second that amendment, Dr. Price? Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Sorry, Jackson, sorry.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say that I know it's a tough decision. It's kind of like you guys are like picking between the lesser of two evils, like not knowing everything with Doorman. But I agree with Ms. Lord. I feel like this, with what we know, it seems like the best option, because with the other options, like for example, yonder bag fuller, I don't think anyone was suggesting them, but I know it was called out, like there's just like the implementation of that. And we also did have a great presentation on transportation, and everyone in the schools unlocking their pouches at the end of the day. That would possibly like impact that. And with either locking it in a classroom or an office, connecting this to my AP psychology class, the article analysis question this year was actually about cell phones and separation. And it did find that, so just to summarize, the participants were separated from their phones for 10 minutes, and 2 minutes into the separation, they received a phone call and they were not allowed to answer it. One group had their phone on the table, like Mr. Turner has here. The other group was in a locked box on the other side of the room, and the locked box group reported higher levels of anxiety in a self-reported test than the on the table group, and it was statistically significant, meaning that there is also an impact on students for that physical separation, which is why I also see Doorman as the better option, because while they cannot access the phone, it's with them, and they have that similarly to the study. So I just want to throw that out there.
That's a great point. Thank you, Jackson. Okay. Hearing nothing else? All those in favor of the made amended motion? Looks like 5. Opposed? 2. All right, so that motion passes. We are going to reach out for some additional information from some folks in the next day or so. I'm so sorry for how long that was, but really appreciate you guys being here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. I would argue this was not a waste of time. I think this was a very thoughtful use of time and really figuring out what is best for our district, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sure we'll see you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your conversation very much.
The will of the committee, do we want to do subcommittee reorganization, or do we want to push that to our next meeting?
I would like to push it to the July meeting.
All right.
I'll bring the hot dogs.
Joking aside, tabling subcommittee reorganization until the next meeting brings us to subcommittee reports. Hearing none. Correspondence?
None this evening.
I will tell you that I reached out to town manager, Mr. Slagle, for an update on the RFP Roman House process, but not with enough time for him to get back to us before this meeting. But I will provide hopefully some information from him at our next meeting, and we will quickly run through future school committee dates and other notable items. Athletic Awards Night is tomorrow in the high school gymnasium. Friday night is scholarship night in the Joanne M. Benton Auditorium.
I think it starts at 6:30.
I think it's 6:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm like, I think it's 6:30. I have it in my calendar.
So
6:30.
athletic
Okay.
awards and scholarship night, both at 6:30. Then this coming Sunday is high school graduation at 10:30. It'll be on the field, weather permitting, or in the gym if it's not great outside. We learned this evening that underclass awards will be on June 4th at 6:30 at the high school. Thank you for that, Jackson. Our next regular school committee meeting is at 6 o'clock on June 10th here in this room. June 16th is the next Wilmington School Building Committee meeting at 6:30 in the large meeting room here in Town Hall. And June 19th is Juneteenth. Schools and offices are closed. Also, Wilmington Middle School graduation is on, I think it's June 16th. And then that's the moving up ceremony that they hold on the Town Common. Mr. Turner.
Question on the meeting on the 16th, is that the one we're having at the high school because of the retirement or teachers?
Yeah, the 10th.
That is thank you, that is the meeting on the 10th. Yes, thank you. We will be honoring retirees, and we will actually be meeting at the high school that evening. We'll be in the courtyard for a reception, and then we'll run it back and meet in the LGIR for that meeting. So thank you, that's a good note. Did we miss anything? All right. I appreciate the late hour. Thank you, everybody, for hanging around. Jackson, don't leave. We have a small gift for you. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn enthusiastically. Mr. Golden, is there a second? Ms. Lord, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you and good evening.